And welcome back again to another episode of ThoughtRiotPodcast, your favorite crime update news podcast
Your favorite true crime podcast.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
I don't know why
that's
you gotta
what it
try
is.
to add all these random adjectives.
I mean, keeping people on their toes. It's a little bit different every time.
No.
Well, anyways, we are the podcast that commits to you that we censor nothing
And talk about everything?
and talk about everything.
You're not saying the full mission statement?
I can, but I figure there's going to come a point where we're not going to have to say the full mission statement. Maybe we should. I don't know. So I guess we can do it. So Thought Riot Podcast commits to you guys, you watching, yes, you, right there, pointing directly at you, to be honest, intelligent, unscripted, and interesting conversations, bringing information we get and following it wherever it leads, holding nothing back and sharing brutal honesty the entire time. We censor nothing.
And talk about everything.
And talk about everything. There we go. Maybe I should say it every time. I don't know. But my name is Brendan.
And I am Malia.
And we are Thought Riot Podcast.
Yay.
Yay. The intro clapping will have already stopped by then, since that was a super long intro. And all the people out there watching, you guys can't see them, but there's like 500 people right there watching us live.
Okay. So, quickly, the rundown. Like, subscribe. If you're on a podcast platform, please leave a review. And check out our other social medias. We're on everything. Join Discord. Check out the live stream on YouTube and Twitch. It's mainly YouTube is where we're chatting. Like,
Yep.
you know, the other platforms, we're not getting a ton of chat, and it's like just random strays, but YouTube's where it's at, where all the other chatters are. So
Yeah.
Come check it out. It's Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 9 to 11 p.m. CST.
Yeah.
And we'll see you there. So this week, we're doing things a little bit different because we've been out of town. Haven't had a ton of time to prepare. So it's more like updates. This podcast.
Yeah, so basically we had family stuff going on, so we didn't want to miss an entire week with you guys. We just didn't feel right about that. So normally our recording days are Fridays. We missed it this Friday because of family stuff, and then we are squeezing it in during this following week. So we figured it would be better to just do shorter updates on some of the cases that we've already covered and dug into with you guys, that you guys can follow along on and get the newest information on, than just not doing anything at all. So this is our update and I guess chatter podcast, because some of the information that I'm going to be covering is directly from some of our viewers, you know, that have left comments that are pretty incredible, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, looking forward to it.
So, in the news, okay, this is the news segment where we talk about the headlines this week. Have you seen that there was a petition made to try to get Alexee Trevizo banned from college?
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So is it a student petition?
No. So I was trying to dig in deeper because everywhere it's saying that the person who began it was Evelyn Graciano, okay? And I
Okay.
tried to figure out who that is. Like, who... They keep saying her name in every article. Her name was on the petition, which is right here, and it no longer is. It says started by change petition now. It doesn't say her name anymore. She took her name off. And apparently she declined request for comment. She won't talk about it. And they spoke with somebody. Which news organization? I mean, this says Christina Coulter, Fox News. Tried to speak with her. She denied, and then they spoke with someone at New Mexico State University. And they talked to a man named Justin Bannister, Associate Vice President for Marketing and Communications at NMSU, and said that Evelyn Graciano is not a student or an employee.
I mean...
So it's somebody totally random. We don't know who it is. At least I can't find out who it is. I tried looking into her name a little bit. Could dig deeper at another time. But this petition... to date, has received 23,747 signatures.
Yeah, I mean, that's wild. Look, I feel like a lot of people take our videos on Alexee different from what our actual goal is. And, our goal is not to claim she's innocent and to not be held accountable. No. But in any investigation, it doesn't matter what type of investigation it is, the details and the evidence is important. So there is going to be a difference between like a murder 2 charge and a murder 1 charge, and the only thing that separates that are the details. So like we believe that she does need to be held accountable in this situation. That's not a situation that you can just overlook. And
however, it doesn't need to be capital murder 1 with her entire
overcharge.
Agreed.
Yep.
So the prosecution is trying to claim that she physically strangled the baby.
Oh, and they have evidence of that?
I mean, I'm curious what they're going to present at trial, because from everything her lawyer is saying, the defense is saying, it sounds nothing like that. And from everything I've seen on the news, like the actual evidence we have, I never saw any evidence of that. Like, they talked about the baby's autopsy. They said it was suffocation from entrapment, consuming all the oxygen in a closed space and not getting more, so you suffocate. Nowhere did I see anything about her physically strangling the baby. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think we're seeing this in a lot of different cases right now. And the obvious one comes to mind with Bryan Kohberger. But when the prosecution or the state isn't getting what they want, a lot of times they tend to move to the character assassination and start creating a storyline for the jury to get bought into. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I believe in our justice system, and it is very important to me for people to be held accountable for exactly what they did. Right. And this is that situation. I feel like there is more than enough evidence here, whether she knew she was pregnant or not, whether she went out of her way to end the child or not. There's accountability there that needs to happen. So those details just determine what type of accountability she's going to receive. I don't think people have a lot of... I just see so many people calling her a monster. And I try to look at it from her perspective, where I'm like, this is a young woman about to go to college. Say whether she knew or not that she was pregnant, what happened in that bathroom, okay? She was drugged up. Like, I don't think this is a girl who took drugs. Apparently her family is very religious, which would make sense with the mother and being afraid to tell her mother. Yeah. She has plans set ahead of her. She was always a really good student, always doing everything she was supposed to do, not even a minor infraction on her record. Think about how terrifying that would be. You're in this drug-induced state, and the baby comes out not breathing. And I haven't seen any evidence showing that she physically manually did anything to the baby other than put it in the bag and try to get rid of it. And I think Capital One murder, I think for them is going to be difficult to prove. And now you have the lawyer coming out with all this malpractice stuff. But I go back to thinking about her in that bathroom on morphine, terrified. Yeah. This baby comes out. And say it is blue, and she has no knowledge of what to do. Yeah. I think that's super... And there's no reports of the baby crying. There were nurses and her mother and tons of people checking on her in this time frame, and never was a baby heard crying. Yeah, and I think where people, we lean more with where
a lot of people feel like, because it's important to be unbiased in looking at this, and we believe that when you're looking at a situation unbiased, you have to look at both sides. So you have to look at the situation from Alexee's point of view, and you also have to look at it from the baby's point of view, right? And so, yes, I agree with you, and I think there is meat on the bone there with exactly what you're saying, regardless of whether she knew or not. Again, that goes back to what charges it could be and understanding how she could be put into that situation. But then we go to what a lot of people are looking at in the complete and utter lack of humanity in the decision to not say something, right? And that is super concerning, and that is ultimately going to be the point of the issue here, that itself. Because sure, yeah, the baby could have came out, it could have not been breathing, it could have been a stillborn, because you guys also got to remember, yes, there was no crying, and she was on all kinds of meds that if you're pregnant you shouldn't be taking.
She chose not to get life-saving medical care for the baby regardless.
She just chose not to say something, you know. I'm sure she
chose
wasn't
to hide
thinking
it. She chose to hide it.
I'm sure she wasn't thinking, well, should I get like life-saving care or not? That's too detailed. She just chose not to say something, and it goes back to the if you see something, say something. That includes even when you're in a situation like this. She should have said something, and she should have said something right away. And just because there were nurses up her butt, that made sure that it didn't turn into a situation like Alexis Avila or Avia or whatever, where she went 5 to 8 hours without coming back to the child in the trash can. She just didn't. We don't have a good understanding of her character, and if she actually would have left it the entire time and never said anything,
she
you know what I mean?
absolutely would have. I think.
You got to be careful saying that. You got to.
She stuck it in a trash bag and actively hid it. So while I do think there is...
While high on hormones.
Okay.
And morphine.
The hormones, I think it's the combination. I wouldn't just say it's hormones or just morphine. And I don't think it would be possible to do it on both of those unless there's a fear component. She did it, I think, because of fear. Yeah.
I just try and be very careful, because you're saying she's going to make a decision that we don't know that she was going to make. And you just got to be careful with it.
What is the point in saying, I don't know if she would have went 5 to 8 hours? At least the other girl's baby survived, like, lucky enough. It probably shouldn't have, but
would she have changed her mind and in an hour been like, hey, I need to tell you something? That changes whether somebody could be a complete and total sociopathic monster to somebody who made a mistake in the situation, had time to think it over, and then tried to correct the situation. That is huge to me. That would mean everything. So I think it's a big deal, a huge deal. But because of the situation she was in, she didn't get that option because they checked the bathroom right away.
Yeah, but they didn't. It took them a minute.
I mean,
they didn't even check the bathroom. They
within
just had
10 minutes.
They had
That's pretty right away.
They didn't. They looked in there, saw blood, called a cleanup lady, and then she found it by mistake.
I feel like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I mean,
they checked it right away, and they were starting They were starting the things needed to find that child right away.
Okay.
So.
Anyway, I just don't know if I agree with not allowing her to go to college or seek higher education. Even in the prison system, prisoners are allowed to seek a higher education in some form. So, she's taking online classes. She decided, innocent until proven guilty. I just don't see the benefit here in barring her from college.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to affect anybody on campus besides rumors and side eyes, and it's going to affect her more than anybody else.
Yeah,
and I see what you're saying with saying who she is, how she made this decision says a lot about her mental health and whether she would have said something later or not. But regardless, to me, and I think to a lot of other people, the baby's dead at the end of the day. Whether she said something 20 minutes later, an hour later, or never said anything at all, the baby is still gone.
Yeah.
So,
and we don't know if that could have been changed.
So, I mean, I guess in deciding where she should end up in life, I guess that matters to know what her mental health status is, and I'm sure she will probably get evaluated for trial.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think that's going to determine everything, and I think those details that people want to overlook will determine everything. That makes me decide whether I believe yes, murder one, because there's a huge difference between a girl that knew she was pregnant, went out of her way to hide it, was trying to cover her stomach, knew exactly what this pain was, sat there in the bed, created a plan and idea that I'm going to go in the bathroom, I'm going to deliver this child, and I'm going to make sure that I no longer have a child going forward. That's murder one all day. That is a complete and total utter monster. That's very different from somebody that maybe knew, maybe didn't know, was so scared of her parents and school and judgment that denial took over, and she chose not to know, maybe, and there's some mental instability going on there, truly didn't know what this pain was, and it just got to a point where it was unbearable, felt like she had to use the bathroom, number two, went to the bathroom, and oh my God, what is that in the toilet? You know what I mean? And then what do I do in a frantic state, and makes a really horrible, awful decision that could have ended that child. Those are two very different people.
Yeah, and what's important to me also is the factors surrounding her life that made her that afraid. If it was an overbearing parent, people do not give enough weight to that. Overbearing parents have literally made serial killers.
Yeah, check out this video.
They have created some of the worst people on the planet and some of the not worst people on the planet who've made the biggest mistakes.
I agree.
Because of fear. So, I mean, she's young. If her family is truly religious, like I'm hearing, and she had this overbearing mother that she was terrified of, I have more sympathy for her.
Yeah.
And I don't consider her a monster as long as she's not, like, gonna become a serial killer, like, as long as that, you know what I mean? But I don't feel like those signs are there for me personally.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And I know this is an unpopular opinion. A lot of people just want to be like, she's a monster, she's a baby killer, send her to prison.
Yeah, but the details matter.
I agree.
They absolutely matter.
Oh, I did want to mention one thing. In the change petition, okay, it says in the beginning that they call upon the authorities and educational institutions to take immediate action to prevent Alexee from pursuing a career in nursing or social work or any field of education. I don't know why they brought up nursing and social work. It is not confirmed anywhere that she was going to school for that. But then they say any field of education. I think they mentioned those two specifically to because what her case is based around, the killing of a baby, the death of a baby.
Yeah.
They mentioned those specifically to make people think oh my God, she could be going into that. We can't have her doing that.
Yep. Yep.
And it's manipulative because there's nothing out there showing that's what she was going to school for whatsoever.
Yep. No, that's wild.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Tell us what you guys think about it.
Absolutely. All right, so this one we actually covered in an update. It was either last week or the week before, but the BTK killer, Dennis Rader, okay? Mm-hmm. And you had brought up the fact that there is 2 missing women cases that the sheriff in Oklahoma is
cold cases,
cold cases that the sheriff is looking into it being possibly BTK. There might be some connection there. Apparently they went missing. If you guys are interested in listening to those details, it's this story here, but I just have a follow-up with that. Now, we were trying to figure out what connected him to that, right? So we know that the sheriff was sitting there and then realized oh shoot, I can't believe I never thought of this before. That was the time that BTK was in this area, this, that, and the other. Well, a new article just came out that talks about Dennis Rader, or BTK, had a notebook where he focused on all his darkest desires, wrote journal entries, drew pictures, planning murders, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And when he was picked up, police got a hold of this journal, and there is pictures in there with detailed planning around abducting a woman from a laundromat, and he actually called it a bad laundry day, right? Bad wash day. I'm sorry, bad wash day. He titled that picture, and I'm not going to put it up here because it looks like an underage girl, but you guys can go check it out. But it looks like an underage girl tied up, and that's essentially what happened with one of these missing women. Is they went missing from a laundromat during the time that BTK was in Oklahoma, and so I just thought that was super interesting. And like for you guys, I'm sure we've said it a million times before, in murder, there's not a lot of coincidences, okay? This is a massive coincidence, if it was a coincidence, but I don't really believe it was a coincidence, because you not only have the picture, you not only have the girl that looks similar to this, but you also have him there during that time.
Yeah, he was there during that time, the right opening in the day that he would go abduct people like this, because he had a specific time he did it.
Yep.
So, and they fit his MO. So
yeah, and one of them was last wearing a green dress, which is super interesting. So even though they're calling this in this article, this was him planning it, it actually sounds like it's reverse. This is probably him reliving it, because there's no way that you would draw a picture of a girl, a lookalike, in a green dress, and then all of a sudden she's just wearing that green dress randomly. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I just feel like that can't be a coincidence either, but it definitely makes more sense for it to have been after, because that's a weird thing to predict. Like, unless he had this vision in his head and then the first woman he saw wearing a green dress was getting it.
Yeah, but the hair color matches, the general size, and when you're comparing the picture's drawing to her being shorter stature, bright blonde hair, I mean, like, super as blonde can be, and this picture looks the same. Like, there's too many details here. When you were sharing that the other week, part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because I was listening to you and I was like, we were talking about, is he just saying this because he wants attention? Because all of a sudden you have Portland popping up, you have Gilgo popping up, and he's the last major serial killer.
He hasn't admitted to it.
I know he hasn't admitted to it, but he started having his daughter speak about it or whatever.
No.
Yeah.
He doesn't have his daughter speak for him. She doesn't speak for him.
No. I know that she doesn't speak for him, but she came out and started talking about that connection and him being self-centered and wanting all the attention and all the limelight on him. So while she's not directly like helping him push this narrative, for a serial killer, all media is good media, right? Because everyone's going to hate him, and they already know that, and they love it. They eat it up.
The sheriff,
so.
It's actually the sheriff that's pushing this forward, because he watched that documentary and made the connections in his head, and he had looked at this cold case, one of them, before, and like years prior, and was sitting on his couch, like eating popcorn, watching a documentary about BTK, and was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I think that cold case is him.
Yeah.
And, his daughter BTK's daughter did come out and talk a little bit about it, because he wrote letters when Kohberger first happened and Gilgo, and was talking about how, like, they were trying to copy him and all kinds of stupid stuff. But they actually did a full interview with him about these cold cases,
right,
and talked through his whole life story, but he never admitted to it.
I understand that.
He just wanted the attention from it, but he didn't want to tell them, yes, I did this or not.
He's never getting out, okay?
He probably wants the investigation.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. A couple people left comments saying, well, he hasn't admitted to it. With someone that's going to be in jail for the rest of their life, there's no reason why they wouldn't come out and say it. That's not true.
For a narcissist, there is.
The only The only thing he has left in his life is mental gymnastics and games, you guys. He is going to draw this out as long as he can. Now that I've seen these drawings and the connection and why they believe that he was tied to these people with everything here, I'm convinced that
I definitely
they
think
were
it was
his
him.
victims. And I don't care if he admits it or not. If he doesn't admit it, then that investigation is going to continue. There's still going to be reports coming out just like this one we're reading
what
here.
he
That's going to
wants.
keep. That's what I'm getting at. That's going to make him relevant. That's literally what I'm saying.
Yeah, it makes him relevant again. He gets to relive his crimes through watching the cops slowly dig up every detail and put it in the media.
Right.
This is exactly what he wants. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath. Like, he gets off on that stuff. He's all in his head. It's all mental. This is like fantasy.
Like every serial killer.
Yep.
It's a game.
He's
they have
reliving,
the game.
and he's reliving his crimes as the police are digging through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But curious what you guys think. I thought it was super interesting. And, last week when we covered it, I was super intrigued by it. And then seeing this, I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely, 100%. These have to be his victims, regardless what the man says. You can't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. He has nothing left to lose except his games, Mm-hmm. But let us know what you think.
Recently, as in this past Thursday, a Kentucky attorney who is 54 years old has been indicted with the murder of his wife.
An attorney?
Yeah, a Kentucky attorney.
Gosh, and we've covered the Orange County judge a couple times, too, recently. So you'd think these lawmakers, what?
Well, the alleged crime would have happened in 2021, April 24th, 2021, and he was just indicted this past Thursday.
So he tried to hide it. He didn't come out like the Orange County judge did, who made a call right away and said, look, I did this thing.
He did try to hide it. So he's facing 3 charges, capital murder, and 2 counts of evidence tampering.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad they caught him if he's the one, man.
I know. So the indictment alleges that he killed her by doing something that caused, I don't know exactly what he did. We don't know yet. But apparently something that caused blunt force trauma to the head and then dismembered, covered up.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
Yeah.
So went literally head first, jumped all the way in.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's crazy. And what's really sad is her obituary. Her name's Judith, and she was 46 years old. She was a counselor at a local rehabilitation center that worked with people suffering from drug addiction and homelessness. In 2007, they lost 2 infant children.
Oh, man.
And they shared 2 other kids at the time of her death.
I don't understand that. I don't get that.
She was literally like a drug counselor.
But
so sad.
she was a mother. That's more important to me than being a drug counselor. I don't understand how you can be a parent and care and love for your kids and be willing to take one of the other parents away from them. That blows my mind. I don't understand that. You just ruined everybody's life in that situation. The 2 kids, hers and yours. What in the world is worth that? Nothing. Nothing is worth that. There isn't anything out there that's worth that.
I know, and we don't have anything on a motive. This is just now trickling out. But sorry, it's not dismembered. It says that he destroyed, mutilated, concealed, and removed or altered physical evidence in relation to the murder.
Okay.
The alleged murder.
I mean, it sounds like it could still be dismembered to get rid of her. You know what I mean? That's what it sounds like to me, is that basically he tried to hide the body. Whatever that entailed.
Any evidence. So it also says that he tampered with evidence, altered some information on his laptop before he gave it to the investigators.
Tried to hide stuff.
Exactly. So I don't know if I said his name. His name is Donald Deskins, and his wife's name was Judith Dawn Deskins. Another interesting fact about him. So there's no bail on record yet, none listed yet.
So this is brand new.
It is. We don't know if he's
Okay.
entered a plea yet or retained an attorney. We don't know any of that information. But it does talk about some online court documents from 2014 where he was suspended from practicing for a month and put on a year-long probation after he led a client through a 3-month-long chase regarding court proceedings in her divorce. And she later discovered that he never, scheduled it.
Okay.
And he was getting payments from her, but never, scheduled whatever they were supposed to do, like a hearing or something, a court hearing.
Sure, he didn't do his job. He took payment and didn't do anything for them.
Exactly, and just kept leading her on about it.
Oh,
What?
man.
Why would an attorney do that? What? You just couldn't fit it in your schedule, and you were just taking her money anyway? I don't understand.
I don't know. It just shows a history of a dishonest man, in my opinion. Because, I mean, look, if you're on some sort of payment schedule, I would assume as an attorney you would come back and be like, look, I didn't have time to get this done. I'm planning and rescheduling on doing it next week, and we'll get it done for you. Here's your payment back, or we'll delay or defer the next payment or something like that. But that just shows dishonesty, honestly. And I'm assuming if he was held accountable to that and put on some kind of probation, then there was probably more evidence there of it being something shady.
Yeah.
So.
And he got in a relationship with a woman, literally Facebook official, 3 months after his wife was killed.
Okay.
So 3 months later, he's with his new boo and making it Facebook official.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. So
If that's not sus, I don't know what is.
I know. So there's really not any other information on it yet. We'll see. It's super sad. And it's just really weird. As an attorney, why would you even try? I mean,
right.
Come on.
You're in this stuff every day. You see how the court system works. You see how the police work. You see people going to jail every day, whether you're in that type of criminal law or not. You still see those things going in and out of the courtroom and talking with other attorneys. What makes it worth the risk?
With the judge, I think he just snapped, and then he was honest about it. This guy tried to hide it, which makes him so much more of an idiot, and I feel like it shows his narcissism and ego that he thought he was smart enough and knew the law well enough to get away with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that somebody like that should have a whole bunch of extra charges thrown on.
Yeah.
Yep. At least that judge, made one of the worst mistakes anyone could ever make, but called right away, right after, and was like, look, I'm not going to be in the office. I just did this thing,
Right, he was honest from the get-go,
Yep.
which, I mean, he murdered his wife, so it's not saying much, but at least he didn't try to hide it.
Yep.
At least he knew it was wrong.
Yep.
And is seeking to be punished for it. I mean...
Yeah, because if he tried to hide it or something like that, I'm assuming that they could go back and start looking in all of his cases because they can now prove a history of a dishonest person, right? So then his judgment on these cases might need to be looked at again. I don't know, but at least he did the right thing after the awful thing.
But imagine being a judge that put all those criminals away and then going to be in prison with all those criminals.
I can't imagine that. I think that is terrifying, and you need protective custody right away.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get it.
Yeah. All right, so this is a crazy one, and it just came out. It just came out like 2 hours ago. But in San Antonio, there was a kidnapping of 2 people, okay? So there's this family that has 5 kids and 2 parents, and there were home invaders that broke in and forced the parents out of the house, leaving the children behind unharmed, and forced them into a white SUV.
So they kidnapped the parents?
They kidnapped the parents. They keep leaning on these details that it was a home invasion, so I don't know if they're trying to say that they did a home invasion thinking that no one was home, which that's a big family. I don't think you could make that mistake, but let's say they did.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of people, but a home invasion, maybe they weren't expecting them to be home, but since they're the 2 adults, they took them. I don't know. To me, when I look at this and I see a house of 7 people, home invasion, forcing the adults out and into a car, it looks intentional. It looks targeted to me.
Yeah.
It looks targeted.
Agreed.
There's no other details on this. This is literally brand new, just happened, just came out a couple hours ago, but it is super strange. It's not something you hear every day. So 2 people broke into a house of 7 and then kidnapped the parents?
Yeah, it's really odd.
Super strange.
So we don't know who the parents were, what their jobs were, like...
They haven't given...
They had any enemies?
Any details. None. The only detail they left was how many people were involved, how many were kids, and that the kids were left completely unharmed. They were home, they were present, and never touched. So what could it be? I have no clue. I
Gambling
would love
debt?
to. SUV. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm just thinking, like, gambling debt, like they come take the parents and they're like, you gotta pay us. It makes more sense for them to just take one parent, though, and tell the other one to get the money.
Right.
So the parents haven't been returned?
The parents have not been returned, and the police wrote, this incident appears to be an isolated incident. There is no active threat to the public. So if you guys are watching this and you know anything, reach out. I'll post the number here to reach out and give any tips. The police also said this is still obviously an active investigation. It's brand new. Detectives are still on scene gathering information and evidence. It's too early in this investigation to confirm anything. The provided preliminary information is all we can provide at this time. I just think it's something that we need to keep watching out for, because looking at it from a criminal aspect, right? And we like looking at the criminal element or aspect of a lot of things and how they would see it. That's a huge risk. Whoever took these 2 people left eyewitnesses, so that is a huge risk. Are we going to end up finding these people ended and now you have 5 eyewitnesses? That's just not common in the criminal world, you guys. That is not common.
No, but they're all children, so...
Yeah. I mean, they are all children, but they're still eyewitnesses.
So do we have pictures of...
No. They wouldn't give pictures of the kids or the parents or anything like that.
The parents, they should, because they're missing, and you want their pictures out there so that people can keep an eye out for them.
They haven't yet. They haven't. This is... They got on scene, according to this, midday. It happened in the morning, and there is nothing else yet. Nothing. This is brand new. So everything we're talking about is complete speculation. It's just a very strange situation.
And scary.
Yeah. Which they were kidnapped, so it makes me think whoever kidnapped them wants something from them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think so, too.
Because normally if you're involved in some kind of criminal activity, you made some major mistakes, it's either you're given a chance to make it right or you're not. And I think we all understand what the not is. But they took them. They took the 2 parents.
Do they show the home?
They don't show anything.
So,
nothing.
Because I was wondering, are they a wealthy family? Are they a poor family?
I would say they're mid.
How do you know?
Just because it shows the general housing community.
Okay.
It does not show the house. It doesn't give any details,
So they're
nothing, which is
middle-class-
common. I mean,
middle-class.
police do not come out and give a whole bunch of details in an investigation. They don't understand what's going on yet.
With missing people, sometimes a lot of times they do.
Sometimes, but this is not just your classic missing person
Yeah.
case. This is anything but common. Normally we see somebody gets picked up, alone by themselves. Like this was a home invasion where 2 people were taken from a family of 7. Everything about it is uncommon.
Think about how scary that is for the kids, the poor kids.
I agree.
Their parents were literally just like stolen from their home.
Yep.
Poor things.
And one thing I will say is it is in Texas, which, any of the states that border Mexico tend to be really hot trafficking states, organized crime, high level organized crime, things like that, where a situation like this might be worth the risk of doing something like that, depending, you know what I mean? I've heard all kinds of stories
we don't have
where
to drive that far to the border either.
Right, and they were Hispanic, in their 30s. Yep.
The parents are?
They are. Yep. The parents are in their 30s and Hispanic. And but just because you're Hispanic doesn't mean you're involved in that. There could be anybody involved in any of that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, but yes, being a bordering state, they tend to have a very high level of very organized crime activity.
Yep.
So, if you guys know anything, let us know. Call the police station. If you're from that area and you have more details, reach out to us because this is strange. So.
It is so strange, and I really hope that the kids have family around to be with them right now.
I agree.
So, remember we covered the Rachel Morin case, and the latest evidence we had was that the police found a DNA match through CODIS from the crime scene, and we had the video and the pictures going around of this guy. We don't have a clear picture of his face, but we do have like a side profile and back. So a lot of stuff has been coming out since then. I mean, not a lot of stuff, okay? Actually, not a lot. Unfortunately. It's actually terrible that more has not come out. But there's been small updates. So the tip was like the reward money for tips that lead to the suspect has raised to $10,000. So here's a flyer for that. And also, there is another flyer out now, which was created by a criminal profiler that the family and the police are working with. And she has apparently, I think, like a decade of experience or something like that. It said somewhere in here. But I wanted to show the flyer and talk about it. So let me pull it up here. I had it pulled up, but I have a ton of stuff.
And this case was gruesome.
Yeah, if you don't know who Rachel Morin is, she was a mother of 5.
We did a video on it.
We did a video of it. And she was killed on the Ma and Pa Trail after going for a walk in August. And this was in Bel Air, Maryland. And she was found there by a drain, allegedly. The police haven't come out with these details officially, but people who found the body have said some things in some interviews. And it sounds like she was probably SA'd and brutally beaten. And it's really, really sad. But ever since this DNA evidence came out, everybody's like, where is this guy?
Yeah.
Because he also committed some kind of assault on a child in L.A.
So
we don't know what the nature of that assault was.
I'm really glad you brought this up because I had just responded to a comment of somebody talking about this, and what they said about this situation and this perpetrator with the LA case is that more than likely there was a sexual element involved, but because it is an underage child, they didn't want to ruin their image or publicize any of those details, because what other thing could it be when you see him leaving the home with his shirt off, and you see the child's arm, which you can tell by the height, more than likely that's what it is, closing the door behind. So it doesn't make sense. There's not that element to it, but if I'm the police, I agree they didn't include that, especially if that family and if that victim is saying don't. You know what I mean? I would want to keep my anonymity too, and not have all my information and details thrown out there.
Well, okay, this is episode 37. Next episode, episode 38, I actually have some really interesting information on this case. It's a deeper dive. This is just an update, and it is about the suspect. It's about the LA case. You know, there's some links here. There's some information here that locals have, that have worked in that area, that know that area, that I haven't seen broadcast yet.
Sure.
That I want to dig into. So keep your eye out for that.
Yep. Next week.
Yep. This is just an update.
What I'll try and do is I'll try and post this update the morning before we release that video. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. So here is the flyer. Okay, there's a picture of Rachel there and the suspect, and this was made by the criminal profiler. It says, so I think it said there's like 5 characteristics. He is a violent criminal with these dangerous psychopathic traits. Narcissistic, only cares about himself. Lacking empathy, doesn't care how others feel. Manipulative, takes advantage of others. And he is a pathological liar, lies about everything compulsively. Now, when they said they were working with a criminal profiler to get information on this guy to help him get found, do you really think it took a decade of experience to come up with that? Because I could have rattled that off in 5 minutes. 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It seems like he's a sociopath who is probably going to become a serial killer, and I think almost everybody has been thinking that. Considering what happened in LA, considering what happened here, the escalation, him spotting her on this trail and doing what he did to her, and this seems messy, like a first-time serial killer.
Yep.
I don't know, just in only saying those traits, like, that, I mean, yeah, he's a murderer.
Yep.
Of course, it makes sense for him to lack empathy and be narcissistic. This is a stranger he killed.
Yeah. The only thing that I want to
And how does this help us catch him?
The only thing I want to detail, though, is one thing that we see a lot in a lot of these cases is that, you know, us average people, I'm talking about us included, you know, look at life a lot of times through a pinhole, right? And serial killers are a different breed of human. And a lot of them are so good at manipulating and so good at lying that the people that they have around them in life or that they associate with or talk to have no idea whatsoever that they're ever lying. But if you're somebody that, you know, is around this person and you see one of these lies, a lot of times all of them start unraveling, you know, like a ball of yarn or whatever. And I think that's what they're suggesting you watch out for, because I don't know about you guys, but I've encountered a lot of people in my life where, you know, everything coming out of their mouth is a lie. They're those like one-up people where they, no matter what you say, you could have a personal account of a situation. They have one that's a little bit more extreme, a little more stressful, a little more scary, a little more, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm getting from that. Now, no, I don't think that it's a great profile that stands out, but I do think that those are characteristics that we would see from
this man.
Yeah, this man.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I know I'm being a little bit critical here. It's
important.
I expected a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
But here's some more detail. So that was the second bulletin. The first one just says he's in immediate danger and is suspected to be a serial killer. Third bulletin down. After committing a crime in L.A., he came to Bel Air, Maryland. This choice of location to a small, lesser-known city is odd, meaning he must know someone in Bel Air where he's been able to stay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and we were wondering about that too.
We were. Because it is odd to come from L.A. to Bel Air, Maryland.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah, I agree. And I think we have double the eyes looking for him because anyone that could have associated with him in LA will know that he's gone, and anyone that could be in the Bel Air area would know that he's there. So hopefully we get something soon.
I think there's definitely people out there that know who he is that just aren't speaking up. They've received over 500 tips, and I think it might be over 600 at this point. And not a single one has led to him.
You can tip anonymously, too. So if you're somebody that you think that you know who this person is, do an anonymous tip,
Yeah, but if you know that it leads to your house...
What do you mean leads to your house?
Okay, if he's living there with you in that area...
Yeah.
Where he's been staying and where he committed this crime, and for some reason... You're scared to tell people, like, leaving that anonymous tip in the end, it might not be so anonymous because the police are going to come knocking on your door.
No, not when you leave it anonymous. No, absolutely not.
Yes, because if he's staying at your house,
sure,
you're going to leave a tip for your own house?
Absolutely. I would. Are you kidding me?
I would just call.
That does not mean that they're going to connect it to you and now you're going to be a target. That does not mean that. You can absolutely leave an anonymous tip. The cops care about catching this guy, not who left a tip. They couldn't care less. That's why they offer the reward money. So, no, I don't think there's any reason. I think if this man is living with you, you still have the ability to somehow make an anonymous tip, whether you block your number or whatever. Cops aren't going to... you could even say, look, I'm leaving this anonymous. I don't want anything to do with this case, but he's here. He'll be here at this time, at this address. Click. And I do not think they're going to come searching for you.
But here's another thing. He's Hispanic. And this is one thing that was brought up in another case of a little girl recently, is that a lot of the people, I forget her name, a lot of the people involved were probably illegal immigrants, and the police came out and said, like, hey, all we care about is catching who killed this little girl.
Yep.
Like, we're not looking at your immigration status if you, come forward and leave us a tip or, help us find her killer, because this person is a danger to the community. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing in this situation.
It is.
I do not think the police are going to come after you if you're an illegal immigrant and be like, hey, thanks for leaving that tip that led to his arrest, but you don't have documentation.
Right.
Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't
I
either.
understand the fear. I have known illegal immigrants, been friends with them in my past. I understand the fear. They are very afraid to interact with law enforcement whatsoever because they do not want to get deported. They don't want to be, like, they don't want a red flag. You know what I mean?
Yep. And they're afraid that law enforcement could leave an anonymous tip with, deportation.
Yep. So let's read the rest really quick. The attack on Rachel Morin that occurred while she was running on the Ma and Pa Heritage Trail was likely committed by an opportunistic predator who saw her that evening. This means it is likely the predator has a specific reason to be in the area of the path. He runs on it, travels on it, works near it, or is living near it. The suspect would not be accountable for either at work or home sometime between 6 p.m. and dusk on Saturday, August 5th, 23, when the attack occurred.
Yeah. I just hope they catch this guy because of how gruesome this was.
And you guys can see at the bottom where you leave tips. It has it at the bottom of the flyer. Yeah.
I'll probably post it on the screen, too, for this whole video, honestly.
Yes.
But if you know anything, this is one of those call to action situations where it requires the general public
He could not be in the air
society.
anymore. Like he left Los Angeles, he could be on the move through the country right now. So I honestly think everybody in the nation needs to see this picture and know this person is possibly going to become a serial killer, and keep your eyes peeled.
I agree. I think it's very possible that we're going to see more.
Me too.
Yep.
Because the police have literally said they're at a dead end. They have no idea where he is at all.
Yep. And the thing is, too, looking at it like in his head, right? They already have a picture of him.
Yeah.
If I was him, I'd be worried of getting caught. So then there's also no reason to hold back. So maybe he's going to try to go to a different country and end people along the way. I don't know. But I'm sure law enforcement is doing their part and looking out for other cases that could match this, you know, as he's traveling, if he is traveling, or maybe he's holed up somewhere. I don't know. But that's where we come in, the general public, you know, so... I just hope he's caught, man, because it was absolutely horrible. And I'll say there's a lot of people out there that are giving her a hard time just because of how she lived her life, and she comes off as very superficial. I just want to talk to those people that, yes, while she might not be the type of person that you like out there, she was part of that gym culture of very physically appealing, superficial looks. I get that, and that's not for everyone.
She was a gym rat.
Yes, absolutely. But she's still a victim. And by all accounts, she still seemed like a positive influence in addition to the rest of the general public and society.
She was a mother of 5, a sister, a beloved sister and mother, and daughter. And her life mattered to everybody who knew her and was around her. So regardless of what we think of her, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
This guy is probably going to become a serial killer.
Yeah.
There's going to probably be more victims if he isn't caught very soon.
Yes.
So, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of any victim, even if she was a homeless drug addict on the street. That wouldn't matter.
I agree 100%. I just don't think that it's beneficial to anybody to focus on her and who she was, because she wasn't out there killing people. She wasn't out there harming people. She was living her life in whatever way she wanted to. And while it might not be, you know, my type of life or your type of life, it was still a life. She was still a positive person in society that I would much rather have her in our country than him in our country, not behind bars. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Justice for Rachel Morin.
Yep, absolutely. Let us know if you guys have seen anything. If you see something, say something.
Yep, and call the tip line or email it.
All right, so this is a pretty crazy one. Have you seen the video going around of the cops' steamy squad car session?
No.
All right, so a Maryland police officer is caught on video kissing a woman outside of his car, and then both of them going into the back of the car together.
Okay.
It sounds like a setup, right?
Yeah.
It totally sounds like a setup to me, because like this image is so perfect here. And
so did he pull her over?
No, she walks up to him.
Is that an adult woman?
Yep, that is an adult woman. And apparently they were in the back of that cop car for like 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
But here's the thing. Here's the kicker, okay? So, one, the cop's on duty. And if by chance he wasn't on duty, he's in uniform and he has a cop car. And I understand some cops take their cars home. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be doing this in your cop uniform and vehicle. You're a representation of that police force, okay? And he is suspended pending this investigation, which I just got to hats off to the police department that suspended him while the investigation was going on. So many times we see cops that are allowed to still work while the investigation is going on. And in my opinion, that should never, ever, ever, ever happen. Just pay them and take away their badge, dude. Do not let them out on the street while that kind of stress and everything is going on.
If it's anything sexual or like
anything.
harm.
No, anything.
What do you mean anything?
Any investigation. If there's an investigation going on into a cop because they believe that they did something the wrong way or something's going on, they should not be on the street. I don't care what it's about. I don't care if it's sexual. I don't care if it's harm. I don't care if it's abuse. Like, no, period. Take away the badge so it can't escalate, so that their stress of that investigation can't come out on victims or people being pulled over. Okay, but it just
concerns me a little that if they do it for anything, that will make them less likely to investigate police officers.
I don't see why, because the general public holds police officers accountable. We have video cameras, we have all this stuff. I don't think so. But that's just my opinion.
Because you're taking cops off the street, and some places might already have a shortage of officers.
Then they need to backfill officers, like any job out there. Like, just because you have those struggles that every other business in America has doesn't make it okay. Like, that's not our problem as a general public. But the fact that we have these police officers that have committed horrible crimes and they're out on the street while it's being investigated is not okay. So, like, I think this police department did something phenomenal, and I don't know if they did that just because there's video evidence of this, but like, dude, cops need to do better. Now, I'm happy that it's this and not abusing or physically beating or harming someone, but it's still not okay, dude.
It's not.
Not okay at all. And there's kids. You hear kids in the background. Kids in the background, and they went into the back of his car to do something sexual. That is a ticket. If you guys were doing something with your partner in the back of your car at a park, you would be a predator forever. You would get charged with a ticket the same as some guy would for peeing in the woods near children. I don't know if I agree with that charge, but you would. So there's no reason why this cop shouldn't get it, in my opinion.
Agree.
And that video is viral. So again, I don't know if this was a setup. When I watch this video, that's the first thing that comes to mind was, did the person with the camera and that girl set that cop up, went up to the officer and just seduced him?
Oh, well, he shouldn't have done it.
That's how I feel too.
I don't care if he got set up. He chose to do it. He could have said no. Nobody forced him.
I feel exactly the same.
What city did this happen in?
Prince George's County, Maryland. Cop was suspended over a viral video allegedly showing him kissing a woman before the pair went into the back of the patrol car. They were there for roughly 45 minutes before they went their separate ways. The girl got in a car and left. He got in his car and left. So, God, man, so dumb. Like,
super dumb.
So dumb. Cops need to do better. I don't understand why all police aren't on high alert right now.
I know.
With the distrust of the general public,
I know. To make a mistake that stupid out in the open, I mean, he's just clearly too stupid to be a cop, so.
I agree. If you can't control yourself over, like, a sexual element, come on.
You shouldn't be in a position of authority.
You shouldn't.
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
No, and he put himself in such a bad position, too, because while it looks like she's going willingly, I could also see how a court could look at this and be like, look, his arm's around him and he's guiding her like he was abusing his power over her. Like, he just put himself in the worst situation.
Yeah, because you're a police officer with a uniform on in a police car. You're already in a position of authority over literally everybody around you. And then you're guiding this girl into a car.
I agree.
So absolutely, it could be looked at it that way, that he's abusing his power.
Yep. And what sucks is, this guy has a wife and kids, and the wife came out with a statement, and, there's been speculation online and rumors saying that The wife has known he's been sleeping around on her for years. We have no idea if these things are true, you guys. This is just what's in the article. But she said that, this is a really tough time for her and her kids.
Course.
And this guy making a decision like this that's going to put his family in jeopardy is horrible.
Disgusting.
Not to mention just his career. You know what I mean? So I'm curious what you guys think. I think cops just need to do better.
I mean, yeah, overall they do. This isn't typically what you think of when you think of that. I mean, I guess it's a little better that he wasn't pulling her over and like exchanged favors, but who knows? Maybe he was and she was paying that back at a later date.
I agree.
Maybe it was a favor to not get in trouble. Who knows?
Who knows
what the real details behind it? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad they're investigating it. I'm glad that somebody caught it on camera.
Yeah, and I just think as a police officer, if you're in that car or you have a uniform on or even just regular clothes with a badge on your hip, you need to be representing yourself like you would in front of, the senator for your state, your boss. So I just think that cops overall need to do better. Now, in this same article, it also talks a little bit about this guy's past, and you never know what's 100% real. I don't have the details on this, you guys, but it sounds like in 2015, he at least got charged with child abuse for spanking his girlfriend's 3-year-old. So I don't know the details on that. I don't know if the girlfriend was okay with spanking or if it was a situation where he spanked the 3-year-old because that's how he feels like kids should be raised and the mother didn't agree with that. Like, I don't know any of those details, but it says here in 2015 he got charged with that. It also says that he was suspended again in May after an accusation of domestic abuse. Again, accusation and charges. I don't see anything stating here it is 100%. He was convicted of these things, so take that with a grain of salt. But it does paint an interesting picture for a police officer because I've known a ton of cops that don't have anything like this.
Well, and it's multiple accusations of abuse, of domestic violence, which even if he wasn't convicted of both, for there to be multiple that you were accused of, it doesn't look good.
Makes me think something's there.
Something's up, yeah.
Makes me feel like something's there.
Yeah.
But I'm curious what you guys think. I know that you guys have left comments before in hearing about our take on police and people that are in the public eye. Like, dude, law enforcement is a public servant, in my opinion. So they need to be able to be scrutinized in these situations here. And this doesn't look good. And this is not something that I personally want to see from my police officers and public servants in my country,
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like accountability and scrutiny is a good thing. I don't know why people either are overly critical of the police or don't want to criticize them at all. Like, there's a healthy balance here.
Yeah.
And we absolutely should be critical of our elected officials, non-elected officials, public servants.
Agreed.
Or else they're able to just do whatever they want.
Yep.
And we don't want that. They're humans. They make mistakes. They have flaws. There's flaws in the systems, like not enough training. We need to be able to call those things out, or else they won't ever be fixed, and nobody will ever be held accountable. So
power's addictive. So the general public being able to scrutinize and hold our public servants accountable helps reduce some of that.
That's the basis our country was founded on.
I agree.
So for anybody who doesn't agree with that, that's not very American. Just saying.
Agree.
Like, that is the basis of America.
Yep.
Is to not have a tyrannical government. Have a government we can call out.
Yep, agreed.
Freedom of speech.
I agree.
Freedom of press. Like, these things are American values.
Yep. But let us know what you think. And that is it for the news story updates, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
good. And next we'll have our actual stories for the week. And remember, these are going to be reduced in size, and we're going to be focusing on updates on cases that we've previously covered. So
and we got some good ones in
yeah.
there.
I mean, I feel like mine are super good, and I think you guys get the gist by now, but normally what we do is we each bring our own stories, and then we get to share them and walk through them with you. So one of us doesn't know what's going on, and the other is telling the story or details. So, yeah, I'm excited to hear what yours are. I know I got some good ones, and we will get into it.
So, first story of episode 37.
Yes.
Remember we talked about the Lindsay Shiver case. We went through, and here's the thumbnail for that. We went through basically the whole case, the whole rundown. Well, at that time, we knew there was body cam footage of a 911 call to their home in Georgia. And we talked about like kind of the things that were said, how maybe this was her setting up some kind of victimhood ahead of time, because that was also the same day she messaged kill him to the alleged hitman. Well, since we covered that, there have been multiple 911 calls that have been released of both Lindsay and Robert calling 911 on each other and about other things, and the mother-in-law, Lindsay's mother-in-law, so Robert's mom calling 911. There's been more body cam footage that has come out, but I kind of wanted to go over the 911 calls.
Yeah, they're
because
strange.
There's some weirdness.
I know.
There's some stuff I just don't understand.
To me, I've only listened to his that he called 911 on. It sounds like their relationship was bad, then they were trying to fix it, then it was bad. Like, it goes back and forth, and that's what I gather from it, because when looking at it linearly, he makes a call saying that he doesn't trust her, essentially, and then it sounds like he does trust her. But I'll let you go through those. It
back
and forth. Like they're gonna be together. They're not. They're gonna be together. They're not.
I guess would kind of make sense in a divorce. There could be moments.
Normal.
Yeah, there could be moments that you second guess it, and you're like, "Well, this is the mother of my kids. I love her. I don't."
Again.
Well, yeah, let's try again. Like maybe it's just a one-off situation where she cheated, and we can go back to normal.
Yeah.
But first, I wanted to go through the timeline of like when all of this happened. So February 18th is when Lindsay takes, and this is all this year, 2023. She takes a solo trip, okay? And then February 20th, Robert calls 911 saying, so literally 2 days after she took her solo trip, like she's back, he calls 911 saying he's afraid she's going to set him up, that she turned off his phone, and that something's going on between them, and he's afraid that if he goes to the house to get his stuff or anything, that she's going to try like scream or something and claim that he is like maybe abusing her,
which
is what he's
smart.
kind of hinting at. And he just wants an officer there, it seems like, so that can't happen, that he can't be blamed for something he didn't do, because he's like, I'm not at risk of doing anything like this. He shouldn't have called 911, but he did. Okay, so that's not a big deal. Whatever. That should be calling into the normal line into a police station, but whatever. For two, like, dude, that kind of planning. So she intentionally shuts off his phone, so when he shows up at the house, he can't call and give his version of events. She would be the only one able to call and give her version of events, so she could make it sound like on her line that he's coming at her. That is
so crazy to me. That shows the level of manipulation and control in that situation for her. In my opinion, that makes her look so bad and so manipulative, dude.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that it seems like they're having this, like, back and forth where he is feeling something's off, that he knows, kind of, or has this feeling that she is like planning things, maybe, and so he's counter planning her plans. I'm curious how he knew that, or if it was just intuitive.
With how manipulative she is, I wonder if she was like trying to seduce him. So she already had this plan that I need him close, right? So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make him feel like we're going to make it work and we're going to work out, even though she has this guy on the side. This is all speculation, by the way. But so keep him close, and then while he's close, then she's able to create the narrative that he is a bad guy.
Yeah. I think it's very likely she was trying to set him up to look like a bad guy. Now, how that all intertwines with the murder for hire plot, I don't know yet. But I wanted to play some of the 911 calls a little bit.
Yeah.
February 18th, Lindsay goes away for a weekend.
So I think the 911 call starts here.
My wife just got back from out of town, and I believe that we're heading down the road of getting divorced. She just cut my cell phone off from Verizon. She called Verizon and had my cell phone disconnected, so I'm calling my mother's phone at the Verizon store because the only way I can get it back active is if she releases it. Mm-hmm. So I have to go over to our home. And with the way that she is behaving, I feel like she might try and call the police to try to set me up as soon as I get there. And I wanted to try to get out in front of it because I'm not a risk of, doing anything crazy. I'm just trying to go to my house, and if I need to pack my stuff and leave, I can pack my stuff and leave. But my kids are there, and, I don't want it to be presented as she goes and screams bloody murder, calls the police over nothing to try to have me carried off in a police car.
Yep. I know.
It's interesting how cool, calm, and collected he is in this.
Yeah. So I think there's something to be said about being a professional sports athlete, and I think in situations of that might cause your average person a lot of anxiety and stress, it's probably where he's his best at. And I've thought that too, that maybe he's picking these things up because he has some sort of intuition that, a lot of times when you're on the field or in sports, like, you're literally trying to figure out what the other team is doing just by reading body language or paying attention to your surroundings, which I understand can be a super far out guesstimation of what could be going on here. But obviously he felt like something was going on, okay? And that something ended up being correct and being way worse than he even thought.
So I thought it was interesting. So the timeline, let's go back to the timeline. February 18th was her trip. February 20th is this phone call. And then the family trip, which was the last week of March, okay? In this phone call, he says that he thinks it's leading to divorce after that solo trip, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To the Bahamas. So then April 5th, so last week of March, then April 5th, literally the beginning of the very next month, April 5th, he files for divorce. April 6th, she files for divorce.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what the hell happened? Okay, and this gets more interesting with the next phone call because it's about a USB drive that was delivered to his office, and it was mailed without a return to sender address, and then also put in his parents' mailbox, so her in-laws like it was just placed in there, not mailed. So I want to listen to that 911 call, and then like we'll go deeper into that, because that is the weirdest one to me. Go ahead. You're just gonna say you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do not have an emergency right now, but I was wanting to just kind of put you guys on notice of something that it's been kind of odd. Are you the right person to talk to, or do I need to be transferred to dispatch, or what?
This is dispatch.
Okay, so today at work, I had a letter delivered to me, and it was a USB thumb drive, and it didn't have a return to sender address or anything, and so I plugged the thumb drive in, and it had all these pictures of my wife on it from about 2 weeks ago when we were out of the country. And the same thumb drive was delivered to my parents' house about a mile away in an unmarked envelope. And it looks like, glancing through, that it was almost like a private investigator. But we have spoken with everybody that we know, and they've all confirmed that they don't know what we're talking about. Okay. So I don't know if we have like a potential stalker or some lunatic that's in town that has been following my wife around. But we just wanted to let you guys know if it might do, or we would like it if you guys could maybe just make a couple of passes by our home tonight. We just kind of went through and checked the whole house ourselves.
So this is April 12th, okay, that he makes this 911 call, and it's literally, okay, so he filed for divorce April 5th. Mm-hmm. This is like, how many days? 7 days, a whole week after he filed for divorce.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
something could have changed. I'm telling you. She might have realized that in the state they're in, he filed for divorce first and has proof that she was with somebody else, which would then not allow her to get any money whatsoever. So if you're manipulative, get into her head, right? And the only thing that matters is money here, which I understand. I'm making a leap. I'm not saying that's who she is. I'm just pretending in this scenario, and the only thing that matters to her is that lifestyle and everything. Wouldn't your next step be to get close to him and fix things, because he was the one that initiated the divorce first? It doesn't matter that she did right after. He can prove that she was with somebody, which takes any monetary splitting in that state gone. It makes it gone. So
maybe something didn't change, though. Maybe he's a good guy, and he was like, this is the mother to my children. Even though we're getting a divorce, this is weird, and I'm worried for her safety and my family's safety.
Yep.
So, what was going on between them didn't matter at that time, because he was just concerned about their safety.
Yeah.
It could very well be that too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't want to think that, but look, he's an adult. He's a grown man. He's clearly has a lot of care and concern for his family. Very family-oriented man.
Everything that I've seen from him proves that he's a good guy. Now, I know
agree.
that it's not the popular belief, like especially in the U.S. right now, we tend to grade and judge men very harshly in these situations, that it could be a flip of a coin or go either way. But I need evidence to do that, okay? I haven't seen any. I haven't seen none that show him as being manipulative, a bad guy, anything like that.
Nobody in the media has even alleged that, from what I've seen. For the most part, everybody's been on his side and anti-her, saying she's the manipulative, abusive one.
I've seen some comments. So I normally am the one responding to comments, not always, but normally. And I've seen quite a few comments alleging that she didn't have a choice, that he was really the bad guy that set this all up. And I responded to those comments and then heard this, and I was like, oh no, this is a total setup. This is creating a timeline, and this is very intentional and systematic in the way that she was doing it. She's a lot smarter than I gave her credit for.
See, I'm not convinced that she did this, that she set this up. I'm not convinced of that. I've heard some people, some experts saying that they thought it could be this, and then some saying they didn't think so. And I actually kind of more lean towards she wasn't setting this up this far ahead of time. That, I don't know. I almost feel like her decision for the hitman was impulsive.
No way. I don't. And here, okay, there's a couple different avenues we can go down here. She might not be the mastermind, you guys, but it could have been a group thing with her new boo, and his best friend, or however there's
and
the
they're all
connection
gonna
to
split
the
some money.
hitman. Yeah, right. And somebody came up with it, and she 100% was involved, because what I'm seeing here, looking at the timeline from the hiring a hitman perspective, is she was trying to paint an image of him being a really bad guy and her being a victim, okay? And then, right after that, she's trying to paint the image that she could have a stalker that is focused on her. And I think that's why all the pictures were focused on her and not the family, because she's supposed to be the focal point in this storyline, and a stalker would get jealous, would see him being abusive to her, and then end him. And that was her way out, is I was just a victim. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know anything to do with any of this. We had pictures show up. I was being stalked. He must have came and did this to my husband.
It's incredibly smart. And
I think so, too.
It is incredibly intelligent. And if somebody really was setting that up, it is absolute mastermind stuff here, okay? Clearly, they weren't smart enough to execute it properly, or it was
on
literally,
the whole time.
or it was literally just the universe that stopped it.
Karma.
Yeah.
I am terrified of karma, you guys.
Because
and if you watch
the investigation
us, you know
into the burglary is how they got caught. Because even though Robert was suspicious, he did not uncover this plot. He had hired a private investigator, and all he found out was that she was cheating on him.
Yep.
That was it. He didn't know that she was planning to kill him.
Nope.
And the police in the Bahamas are who found out and told him by complete random chance of investigating a burglary at the bar that her boyfriend worked at.
It's so crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It is so crazy. And everything connects and makes sense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I look at all of this, and I don't see question marks. I see a very intentional timeline being created, to the point where she probably wanted to be on that jet to take pictures to make it look like they were okay. That's what I was thinking after I've heard a lot of these too. Why did she want to be on the jet so bad? And at first I was thinking, well, obviously because it's a private jet, and who doesn't want to travel on a private jet? But she was used to that, so for her it wouldn't have been some great thing. She did it a whole bunch of times. I think she wanted to create a timeline of them being okay.
Maybe. Or it could have been, okay, she was supposed to go on a trip to Key West with her boyfriend, but then they decided, like, we're doing the murder plot now. And so she wanted to be on that trip to the Bahamas. Like, and she was cut off financially.
But in order
because
for her to
that's the only thing I've seen from him that was, like, not okay, in my opinion, is that they have been together all this time, and he tries to literally take everything, including the kids, and leave her with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that I saw that I was like, man, but, you know, it could just be him being extremely hurt, and from what we'll get into a little bit in a minute, apparently even her parents, his parents, him, everyone in her life thought she was totally mentally unstable.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But it's interesting to think, like, it could have been a plot going on for this long. But it's also interesting, the timeline isn't what I thought it was. Because I thought he had hired a PI by now. But no, he's talking about these photographs possibly coming from a PI that he doesn't know about. He doesn't act like he's hired a PI in this call.
Yep.
And in February, he was saying he thought it might lead to a divorce. Well, he didn't actually file for a divorce until after the family trip, and he didn't have a PI yet.
Yep.
So I'm super confused because in all the articles I read leading up to this, he hired a PI, found out she was cheating, and then filed for divorce. That's not what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
He got random photos from somebody he doesn't know. Maybe he hired a PI later, but so far I haven't seen any evidence to actually prove he hired a personal investigator or a private investigator.
Yep.
So, I don't know, really strange, but if the plot is legit, what you're talking about right now,
I think it is.
I don't think
really
it's her.
Think it
I
is.
think it's her I think it was all of them working together.
Yep.
And maybe the guy that was supposed to be the hitman, I'm blanking on his name right now. I think is it Farron or is that the boyfriend?
I don't remember, but we talked about it.
Maybe he was getting cut off financially because he was son of a politician. Like, he wasn't no poor boy. Maybe he was... I'm curious to see what comes out about all of their lives and what was going on in their lives at this time.
Their
that
circumstances.
Maybe they needed money. Maybe there was life insurance money that was going to come out of this, and they thought...
With a woman involved, there doesn't need to be money. We've seen that time and time again.
That's a good point.
I don't need to hear anything about them to believe that she was involved in this. There's no way. I don't think that... Dude, they sent pictures of his location, pictures that he didn't know was being taken.
Yeah.
For somebody to come out and say, she didn't mean it, it was just a joke because she was angry. No, she gave his location.
She meant it.
She gave his location. That is not a joke.
Pictures of him. Yeah, it's not a joke.
Not a joke.
Okay, so fast forward April 30th. This is a couple weeks later. Lindsay calls 911.
Hey, this is Lindsay Shiver. I'm in the middle. I just got off the phone with my divorce attorney. I'm in the middle of a divorce right now, and my kids are being withheld from me. So they're going to my mother-in-law's house who has zero rights. So I was hoping that I could have assistance at her house when I pull up to get my kids.
So
That's already manipulative and shady.
It is.
Already, because they're with him, I'm assuming.
They are
with his parents. They're with him, and he's staying at his parents.
Well, he's not. So he had her kids at her
Their
parents.
kids, you mean?
Yeah. He had their kids at her parents' house, and she didn't go. And she's like, I let them have that time, and then they're supposed to be coming home, and he says, oh, I'm taking them to my parents' house now and dropping them off. And she said, his parents have no rights to my kids. I want my kids home, basically. And now he won't answer the phone. So she actually, basically stalked his parents and then followed them when they were leaving to see if they had her kids. And his parents called 911 and were like, she's got a gun, we know she's armed, and she's following us, and we're scared because she's mentally unstable, and her own parents are telling us to call 911 because of how mentally unstable she is, and we think she's on drugs. So.
Oh, man, dude.
So
see that continued victim.
Yeah, I want to finish listening to these, and then we'll talk about it and move on.
I've been gone all weekend, and my husband just texted me that was the new plan. And, of course, I won't answer the phone.
So who has custody of?
We both do. We haven't gotten that far to a hearing or anything. They've been gone out of town all weekend, and we're in Wiggum 2 minutes ago heading to the house, and then I get the message that now his mother's going to have them, and I'm not okay with that.
Now, this is Robin Shiver, Robert's mother, the mother-in-law, calling 911 on her. All on the same day, same altercation, with Lindsay following them around.
We've got a daughter-in-law who's going through a divorce, and she's following me right now, and I know she does have a pistol possibly in her car, and she is threatening that we will not get to see her kids because my son is on his way back from having been out of town with the kids. Okay, is there a call at that location right now? on my tail following me right now.
And what is her name, ma'am?
Lindsay Shiver.
S-E-Y?
S-A-Y.
What kind of vehicle?
She's not well. It's a Escalade. It's a black Escalade with black windows, and we're on Pine Tree Boulevard, passing the college right now. And her mother told me to call y'all because they've talked to her, and they said she is really crazy. She's not well, and she's on, I don't know what kind of drugs.
How old is she, ma'am?
She's 35.
All right. So, and then Robert calls the same day and talks about the kids because he's doing the same thing he's been doing, calling 911 saying, hey, I just want to let you guys know what's going on because I don't want to look bad. You know what I mean? So he does the same thing.
My wife and I are going through a divorce, and I've been gone all weekend, and she just threatened myself and my mother to bring the kids back, and her mom is saying to take her to the ER and check her into some mental some institution because they think she's having kind of a midlife crisis mental breakdown, so it's super unstable, and she just followed my parents when they left the house trying to find the kids, and deputies were called, but since we live in the city, they said we need to call Thomasville City instead of the county.
Okay. Did your parents have the children?
No, the kids were there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's good. That gives you the general sense of what's going on. The 911 call of Robert is longer than that. I'm just not going to play it all because we're running a little short on time at this point.
That's wild.
It's interesting. And when I watched all the body cam footage of them pulling over Lindsay and Robin, the stepmother, or not stepmother, mother-in-law. So I watched all the body cam footage from this day. There's 2 police officers. They were with the sheriff department, which actually complicated things more. They actually said they needed to talk to the city police. I don't understand all of that. But Lindsay in it, she doesn't seem like she's having a mental breakdown, if I'm being honest. Like, she doesn't appear that way to me. Like, she has her wits about her. She's extremely manipulative, is what it is. Like, she's extremely, extremely manipulative. I'm curious what kind of threat she made.
I mean, a threat on his life. Or you mean in this situation?
When she threatened him and the mother-in-law. Because Robert said in this 911 call that she threatened them.
The fact that she's following them is a threat. That is a threat.
Well,
that is a physical threat. A threat does not have to be verbal.
It did seem like the police kind of sided with Lindsay a little bit. They're like, she was just following you to know if the kids were with you. And now, from now on, if she follows you again, like, you can call the cops, and she shouldn't be doing that anymore. The kids aren't with you, and they tell her, like, the kids are not with her, and they're like, it's not illegal to own a gun.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, what?
No, that's all true. I don't think that's siding with her. This is a bad situation, and those cops did what a lot of cops should do and de-escalate.
Yeah.
That's exactly what should have been done there. So I think, I haven't watched it, but it sounds like based off what you're saying, they did the right thing. It doesn't necessarily mean they're siding with her, but what Robert should have done is 5150'd her. That would have been calling the police and saying, hey, she's unstable, she's running around with a gun. Let me explain why she's unstable, and if they feel like there's enough evidence to then pick her up because she is she's not safe for herself or others, then they would admit her against her will for 30 days.
That's what Robin was trying to do.
Yes.
That's what the mother-in-law was trying to do. That's what she was trying to explain to the cop, but I feel like they didn't have the language.
Yeah.
Like, Robin specifically didn't have the language to get that across well in the body cam footage, because that's what she was trying to say. Like, I think she's on drugs. Her parents feel like she's mentally unstable and not safe to be around the kids. And
her parents would have been the best one to put that in.
her parents should have called the police themselves and asked for a wellness check and say, we believe she is extremely mentally unstable, possibly on drugs, and we need you to check on her and see if she needs help.
Yeah.
That's exactly what her parents should have done. I don't know if they ever did that. Now, they bailed her out of jail and are buying a piece of property for her to live on while she goes through this trial.
Yeah.
So, clearly they're supporting their daughter somehow.
Well, they could want her safe and still
held
mentally
accountable and
safe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if you got the money to be like, you know what, it's nice down there, we'll buy a home, whatever, while you get that done, and you have the financial ability to do that, I mean, good on you or whatever. She can't leave now from that area. She has to stay down there according to the rules and being arrested and everything, since she's being charged down there. But they could still want her 5150'd and do all those things. Both of those things can be true simultaneously, you know?
Yeah, they can be. So we
Gosh,
got
this is
April 12th,
interesting.
the strange package with the USB drive with all the
Mm-hmm.
pictures of Lindsay. April 30th, well, April 5th, earlier that month was the divorce. April 30th is this 911 call. Then July 16th is the body cam footage we saw outside their
Mm-hmm.
home when they're fighting about the private jet and going down to the Bahamas.
Yep.
And then that's literally that's what sealed it for me. That was the same day she texted kill him.
Yeah.
Was that day while she was trying to get on a flight to the Bahamas.
Yep.
Meaning they were probably going to try to carry out the killing while during that trip.
Yeah.
And the cops literally got there in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Literally.
Correct.
Which is
Yes,
insane.
I don't think this is a joke. I think that this was planned, and I think it was planned months ahead of time, and we're going to continue to see more details come out. Like, this investigation's ongoing, okay? It's not like they're like, oh, snap my fingers, we have everything we need to show everybody. No, it's going to slowly come out as they find stuff. But I believe that this has probably been in motion or planned for 6 months.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And they're just waiting for the right
So
time.
what, you
So there
think
can be
since-
liquid plans where, depending on what happens in the future, is when it's going to happen. So they wouldn't be 6 months ago. All right, so let's set our clocks, and we're going to do it 6 months from this Monday.
No, they
on,
just
you know
began
what I mean?
talking about it,
Correct.
thinking about it.
Yep.
Because February is the first thing we hear of divorce, like
Yep.
even thinking about divorce. So there were troubles before that,
Correct.
clearly.
Yep.
So, and she had that solo trip in February too.
Yep.
So it's like, how long was she thinking about this? Like,
Yep.
did she find this new man and think, God, I don't want Robert, but I don't want to, like, not have my kids, and I know the kind of man he is, and if I'm out with some other dude, he might, like, try to take everything and, you know, leave me with this guy, and then
Yep.
I won't have any money, and I want the money still, and I want the kids still, but just not him.
Or maybe she really was losing it and didn't even think about things.
I wonder
in
if
the-
she
that
literally had
pros
this
and cons.
fantasy of having her life exactly the same, but just replacing the man.
The husband, yeah.
Is
yeah.
what I
It's very
think.
possible, which is an unstable idea and thought, and could lead to some insanity and horrible decisions like this. Yeah.
It's just a terrible, horrible, disgusting thing to do to your whole family.
I
Especially your
agree.
children. Especially. Like, you have been a part of this family, the in-laws, everybody that is involved in this family for years, and you're going to kill, like, a beloved family member, an idol for your children, the only father figure they'll ever have, or, like, real
Again,
father.
I agree. I've said this in multiple cases that I do not see how you could get rid of your kids' parents regardless how bad it is. One of the other parents. That is
Well,
insane.
how bad your relationship is. Like, now, if they're an abusive, disgusting person, I could see a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, I guess.
But rather just send them to jail, maybe?
Your kids would immediately hate you.
Well, July 21st, so July 16th is that body cam and 911 call, and then the text and kill him, and then July 21st is when she was arrested. It's such a short timeline.
I know.
It's so short. It's
I
crazy.
know.
But I feel like those 911 calls uncovered a lot.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of what was going on here. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Robert could feel it. He just didn't know what it was.
Yep.
That's probably why they thought she was going insane. What if she wasn't going insane and they just felt like that because they're like, this isn't Lindsay.
Yep.
Like, this is a different person. Because she's with this new guy and planning to literally murder Robert. So they're getting this disconnected, sneaky, totally different person than they've ever known
Yeah.
before. I guess you could argue that's instability, but I don't know.
I mean, the fact that she made all these decisions is unstable. Absolutely.
I guess, but would you argue every person ever that tries to kill somebody is unstable?
Absolutely. 100% I would. Yes.
Yeah, but what if they, like, are a sociopath? Then are they
Yes,
technically unstable?
Yes. That is not normal.
Okay.
Unstable.
Yeah. I'm just like, I always try to think, like, if they're intentional, then I don't know if you can just chalk it up to instability. But that's all I got on Lindsay Shiver.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, let us know if this uncovered as much for you as it did for me, because this case is insane, and I know more is going to be coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this is a crazy one again, and we've done 2 videos now on JonBenet Ramsey, right? One of the most notorious, interesting, most viewed cases that has ever came up. Ever. There are so many question marks and so many possible suspects that all make sense. Like, you can literally put all the suspects up on a wall and throw a dart at the wall and have good enough evidence, it feels like, to convict any of them. It is the craziest thing. But everyone always goes back to the note, right? There is something...
The monkey wrench.
Yes, there is something unexplainable about the note. Well, one, I'm going to talk about a comment here because we got a lot of engagement on those videos, which I love. I appreciate that, and I want them to keep coming. What's interesting is I had 2 comments that somebody left me that is a very, very, very different suspect, okay? That makes a lot of sense, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. And but when I went to go back and look for them yesterday, I couldn't find them. So I don't know if the person deleted them, but I wanted to give them credit. So if you're watching this and you were the one that left those comments, I appreciate it, and a shout out to you. I wish I could have given your name, but I don't know, maybe it's a good thing I'm not giving your name, because as I was doing the research on this, I realized that on forums in the past, people have talked about this suspect, and this suspect came after them, sued them, literally sued them, which makes me a little bit nervous talking about this, but we're still going to talk about it because, like, what if we catch
our mission statement?
Yeah, if we catch a lawsuit, I mean, I'll just put out a video saying, hey, we caught this lawsuit. And just as a disclaimer, like, dude, we didn't come up with this. Well, we're just going through the possible suspects and people that were involved, and anybody that's connected to the Ramseys, you gotta be able to suspect that you're going to be talked about.
And this is obviously all alleged. Like, nothing we're saying should be taken as 100% truth, fact. It's speculation. It's alleged. That's not suable.
Yeah, and
you can't win that.
And the details of this came from books, articles, and everything else that we didn't connect. But I haven't heard of this person, okay? Do you know who I'm talking about yet?
No.
Okay, so I am talking about John Ramsey's banker. Rod Westmore, right? Let me see. I wrote the name down here. Yeah, Rod Westmoreland, which is a financial big shot. Big time millionaire, if not billionaire, investor, banker. He's big time. He's a really big financial guy out of the Atlanta area.
Huh.
Well,
wait, Atlanta? So he never lived in Boulder?
I don't believe he lived in Boulder, or maybe he had a second home in Oh, yes. He was living there. But
So at the time of
yes.
he lived in Atlanta when they lived in Atlanta, and then lived in Boulder when they lived in Boulder?
Yes, I believe so. If I'm wrong, I'll just come back and correct it in the description. Since we're not doing full stories here, I didn't dive into all the details of Rod Westmoreland. So that Rod Westmoreland was John Ramsey's best friend and banker, one of his best friends, okay? And apparently Rod has some sort of connection to Ghislaine Maxwell. They use the same attorney or something like that, based on what this comment was and the details that I was reading here. Yeah, so going back to the 118,000, okay? Mm-hmm. So some people speculate that it is somebody that is in the banking industry or financial industry because of how they wrote the 818,000 with the decimal point and cents. Because in the banking world and financial world, that's habit. It's not like you're going to say, oh yeah, let me place an order of this amount of stock for 118K. No, you write out the whole denomination, everything. Yep. Past the decimal, right?
Okay.
So now, when JonBenet went missing, John called his bank to get this money ready.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about that in the other stories, and I didn't realize that he reached out to him. Well, he called Rod's office to get this money ready, okay? And Rod was out of the country, had just left that night or the morning before. So he got his front desk person, whatever, and she was like, oh, okay, John, you know, I'll get in contact with him. Reached out to Rod. Rod called him back and said that he was going to be able to have that ready for him. So all of that went through Rod. Now, with his financial and bank checks, Rod would have known that amount too. Would have known it exactly. He also would have known the where John worked at. And you know how it's signed at the bottom? So a lot of people theorize that those initials are actually where John worked and would have been printed on his checks.
Yeah, but what's the point of putting that in the ransom letter?
To give some sort of connection without making a direct connection.
Like a taunt?
Hinting, taunting, yeah. And you know that part in the note that says, John, you're not the only fat cat?
Yeah.
So did you know when they were in Atlanta, both Rod and John were part of the Atlanta Fat Cats?
What is that?
It's a club, a group of guys.
Like a gentleman's club?
Yeah, financial, well, I mean, not a gentleman's club, that's women. But this is a club of men in the business world, so...
Yeah, there's like old school gentleman clubs that don't necessarily have strippers.
I get it, but nowadays...
Like a cigar type lounge where they go all hang out and talk business.
Yeah. So, whoever this was... That fat cat statement makes it less likely it's Gary Oliva.
Yeah. And the way they wrote out the money makes it less likely.
And the way they wrote out the money, yep. And the fat cat statement. That's interesting because that is from before them living in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
When I was reading this comment, my wheels started turning, and I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know this name. And we keep saying this is literally like an onion. There is more information and more information and more information. And everybody knows you follow the money always, okay? Well, where does that money lead? It leads back to Rod Westmoreland.
So is there any speculation on what a motive would have been?
No. No major motive, because John kept communicating with Rod after. But apparently in the book that was released through John, Rod made some weird statements about the whole fat cat thing, and people speculate that there was hidden knowledge at that time about the garrote that Rod knew about. However, I don't think that's good evidence, because if John's best friends with Rod, John knew he was there, and he could have shared that with Rod. Right?
See, I almost wonder if it's not like what we are talking about, where like someone who was a disgruntled worker or someone in John's life got mad at him and then tried to hire
That's what I
Gary
think too. Is
Oliva.
that I think both of those things
Or
can be
Oliva.
true. I think both of those things can be true.
I agree with that, and I question, because for him to break in the house and get his hands dirty like that, being as rich as he is I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yep.
So it makes me question if he didn't hire him and he actually himself wrote the ransom note, or maybe gave Gary like you need to include these specifics, and that's why Gary had to keep rewriting it and practicing it. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I need to include this, I need to include this, and like maybe he wanted to have those specifics in the note to hint to John.
I agree.
But
I think
without-
it's very possible more than one person is involved here.
Me too, and which could mean why it's so hard to figure out who it is. Because
agree.
it's not just one.
Because simultaneously, whoever it is, or multiple people, whoever it is, the police still messed up that crime scene.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They
did.
screwed up the crime scene to where nothing could be taken seriously, honestly, in a court
And they worked
of law.
backwards.
And they worked backwards because they believed it was the Ramseys. However, and this person says, I'll read off their points. They said, the Ramseys were framed by a really clever killer. Before the 911 call, all is done to make the Ramseys look guilty. Even the small foreign faction was written with Ramsey's pen and paper, which makes the Ramseys look guilty. The initials matched his job perfectly. 2, the Ramsey's paintbrush is used when it's not needed. JonBenet can be strangled by a hand or strangled with just the rope, or she could have been smothered by a pillow, or just hit in the head again. Adding the paintbrush to this crime to make the garrote after already adding the Ramsey's pen and Ramsey's paper is further proof to the Ramseys frame up, which that all I get that all makes sense. Why take these really weird specific things from all over the house to further make it look like it was the Ramseys, right?
It makes sense to frame someone you would use things from in the house, but then we have the contradicting evidence of the duct tape not being from the home. It was brought from outside, and they never found the roll of duct tape.
Yeah.
And also the rope found in a brown paper bag under the bed in the guest room, which was used for the garrote.
Yeah, I get it. I understand it, which makes me feel like it was someone close that could have stayed in that guest bedroom and already had this planned. Was this about, could John have been in something shady for real, something criminal, and could John really know what this is connected to, but would incriminate him on something else that he can't speak about? Like, these are all really good questions in this case, where when they first said this name, I was like, before I read the comment, and this was a really long comment, and again, I appreciate it. If you're watching this and you're the one who left it, I appreciate it a ton. I went into this comment thinking, dude, I am bought in on Gary Oliva. Like, there's too many details there, okay?
Yeah.
But after I read this, I was like, oh, man, I don't know. Because that fat cat comment, that person has to know of John's background, or was in Atlanta when he was in Atlanta, or some other connection that's unknown.
Yeah, but a fat cat is
Not
like,
common language for the 90s. That's common language for like the 60s and 50s.
yeah, but it comes from like old films, is where I think I've heard it before, like the fat
this
cat and
wasn't
the
an
big
old
businessman.
crime.
It's a known term for like a fat cat businessman, like a big shot.
That's quite a coincidence, because in
And
the
you're dealing
90s,
with-
no one was saying, "Oh, look at that fat cat businessman." That was not a term.
Okay.
That died in like the 60s.
but how old were the people involved?
I understand that, but again, that's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's
A
weird.
huge
You're right,
coincidence that
it
he
is.
was an active part and member of the Atlanta Fat Cats. And then them to say, "You're not the only fat cat." Dude, they are not talking about him being a businessman. This was the 90s. If this crime happened in the 50s, when terms like that were a big deal, yeah, I might agree. But nobody in the 90s was walking around calling businessmen, "Look at those fat cats." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was the time of, what's that band? Whatever cats. The Black or Alley Cat Fever or whatever.
I don't know.
Okay, but that's that, that's that time frame. So, all right, 3. The paintbrush just left hanging from JonBenet's neck after strangulation and not thrown away is proof somebody wanted the Ramseys arrested. If the crime was actually done, the paintbrush would have been thrown away after strangulation. Amazing point. Amazing point. Why wasn't the crime scene cleaned up? If you're a criminal and you're going to do a crime, you're not going to do all this stuff and then just leave it and walk away. No, you take things with you because those are evidence.
Yeah, I think that's why some people believed that the parents, like that. I think that was one thing people were saying about Bert doing it, is like the parents
parents
staged
would
it.
know.
That the parents staged it after.
Staged it to look like them? It doesn't point to anyone but them.
Trying to stage it to look like an intruder.
With all their things, their pen, their paper,
Yeah,
their
who said it was
paintbrush.
smart? Who said it was smart? I don't know.
But John was extremely smart.
Yeah,
And
he
a
was.
very, very intelligent man that had money and ran with circles, that had information about how crime works, how the law works, things like this. To think that the parents could be involved, but leave all that incriminate them, makes me feel like there might be something to this.
Yeah.
There might be something to
Yeah,
this.
there might be.
And then for John to call him and him be out of town the night of the crime,
Well, he just left, yeah.
that's an amazing alibi.
Yeah.
Rock solid, airtight.
Yeah, I wasn't in town.
Alibi. I wasn't in town. You can't look at me. I wasn't there.
Very convenient.
It is convenient. So, the killer's plan was to frame the Ramseys to get revenge on John Ramsey. Then on top of the frame-up, the killer tried to trick the Ramseys into thinking JonBenet was kidnapped by hiding her body in the basement long enough for the Ramseys to follow the ransom note. Which, again, good point, to try and get some kind of money while the actual crime was already done. Not call police or friends, give the killer $118,000, and JonBenet will be found dead, hidden in the Ramseys' home, and the Ramseys were framed. So this shook me right there. So not call police or friends. So whoever did this was really smart, because if by chance the Ramseys wouldn't have called police, they absolutely 100% would be behind bars right now.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, they would be.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, they would.
So this person had a multi-layer approach here to where they should have been caught up. Which, when I look back at this, I'm actually surprised the Ramseys didn't go to prison. All the crime was everything from inside of their house, from different areas of the house. The mom's art supplies, the pad and pen from the desk, the everything. Like it was in their house, and they believe that the flashlight was used or whatever that couldn't be found. Another area of the house, right? So everything was done inside the house, and then
they found the flashlight. It was sitting on the kitchen counter.
Oh yeah, that's right. And so if they wouldn't have called the police, they 100% would have been caught up for this.
Yeah, I think so, because they would have been seen as, like, extremely dishonest. Yep.
Give the killer $118,000, and JonBenet will be found hidden in the Ramsey's home, and the Ramseys are framed. To make it look like they paid somebody. The 118. The frame up of the Ramseys is the killer's cake. The 118,000 would have just been icing on the cake. But this killer made a mistake by trying to obtain the 118,000, because now it becomes a follow the money case, which has been used by detectives to solve thousands of cases involving money by just following the money. And if you follow the 118,000 money trail in this case, then it leads to one person, John Ramsey's best friend at the time, who was also his banker friend, Rod Westmoreland. Interesting, right?
Yeah, I'm so curious what his motive could have been. But, one thing that you said in this was that it was signed with his company's, like, initials.
Yeah.
I don't know how that lines up, because it signed SBTC.
Yep.
His company was Access Graphics.
No, hold on. We don't have time to dig into that. I will come back and show you, but it does line up for at that time. It's who he was contracted through working for. But yeah, so the SBTC does line up with one of the companies that he was contracted with or working with at that time. But I believe that that's the exact question I asked when I responded to this comment. Exactly. And this person responded with the answer, where I was able to then verify it, that company was around at that time and John was part of it in some form or fashion. It had something to do with a training center or whatever that proved he had some kind of connection to the past. So
I wonder why it would be signed with that specifically.
Yeah, because again, whoever this is with the fat cat thing, like, I understand that you're writing it off, but it doesn't match.
I'm not writing it off.
It doesn't match the words that were used in the 90s. Nobody was saying fat cat then. That is super strange. A random person wouldn't come in and be like, "You're not the only fat cat." Words change with generations, and that includes older people. Older people don't hang on to these words that aren't used around them. Words change. That was a direct reference to his past, and I think that the initials were a direct connection to his past, and I think that it was, letting him know that there's something up here.
I think it's too big of a coincidence, so I'm not writing it off. I was providing an alternate theory to think about.
Yeah.
Could it have been used in a different context where it wasn't a hint? But I do think it's way too big of a coincidence, so it probably does absolutely have something to do with it.
Yeah, but I figured we're going to dive deeper into this theory. I just wanted to do an update because with this being, the update episode and talking about some of our viewers' comments and everything, I found this very interesting and something I had never considered before. It's not something I ever came across as we started looking into the JonBenet case. Now, remember, too, for those people out there that have been following this for years and years and years and years and years, we've only just started digging into it, or myself has only just started digging into it since we started becoming officially a true crime podcast. So I have a lot to catch up on, and this is a new name to me, and I found it very interesting, and the how things line up here was eye-opening. I don't know why I didn't look at this case and think, wait, why was this evidence left with her? That doesn't make sense. That does not sound... The only thing it could be is it's like Gary Oliva in A Crime of Passion, and the parents wake up, he hears something, and they have to run. That makes sense, too. Or it's intentionally left and taken from very specific parts of the house that make a connection to the parents.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of anything else.
Because, I mean, it's her mom's paintbrush.
It's her mom's paintbrush. It was very likely the flashlight for the hitting.
Which is her father's.
Right. And then what's interesting is the garrote wasn't needed.
No.
That's a weird weapon to use against somebody. That wasn't needed. The paintbrush wasn't needed. You could have strangled someone with just the string or just hands.
But it seemed like she was, like, SA'd, so maybe it was like it was all sexual based.
While using two hands?
No, it wouldn't have been while doing that necessarily, but...
You have to let go.
Okay, I know. I'm talking about the whole motive
I understand.
behind it. Is...
I get what you're saying. I'm thinking in the act here, okay? So using that during an assault can't happen because that requires two hands. You cannot control the body and control the garrote. So it wouldn't have been used in that.
Well, there's also the evidence of a stun gun being used. So that could have been, and it was used repeatedly.
Yeah, but then it goes back to why add the paintbrushes to make your job harder? The garrote doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. If you're going to go through with a garrote, why wouldn't you just use your hand? If you're going to go through with that, why not just use the string? Like, there's so many other options that now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't make sense why that paintbrush was there.
Like, you went through all that time to find a paintbrush, break it, and
and made your job 10 times harder than it ever needed to be if you're a killer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
When you look at, like, professional killers like BTK, none of them use a garrote.
Well, and none of them, like, go find things from in the house to make into a makeshift garrote.
Yeah, garrote, period.
Yeah.
Like, at all, because it's not convenient. It doesn't help with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff. But I want to know what you guys think. And have you heard about Rod Westmoreland before? And
I hadn't. Well, actually, no, I hadn't.
If Rod Westmoreland is watching this, don't try and sue us, you know?
I mean, you can't win anyway.
Yeah.
Everything's alleged.
Yep.
We have no idea what we're talking
It's
about.
all off
we're
the
just
internet.
two dumb idiots talking, flapping our lips online, like...
Yep, but anyways, and the person that left this, leave some more details. I would love to know more details about this. They made a comment saying that people that have been following this for a long time and are heavily invested in this, for the most part, believe this is what happened.
Interesting.
So, but when people are looking into this, because it involves rich and money and everything else, it tends to get a tin hat put on it. So, which I get.
Yep.
I understand it.
I understand it too.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, there's so many people involved and nobody's been caught for this crime. So I feel like the more you dig, the more naturally it's going to become that.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
Like, there's no avoiding it.
Yep.
So.
I agree. But let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a break or? Okay. So. Moving on, there has been a ton going on in the Murdaugh case as of recent, which you think like, oh, he's convicted, chapter closed, we're done. No, not at all. Like, I feel like we just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Being honest.
That's what I expected.
So if you guys haven't watched our drug theory video on the Murdaugh case, go watch it because I feel like it's incredibly important with what we're talking about, and I think it's a very plausible theory. Like, if anything, that's what I think for sure happened.
Yep.
Now, we definitely believe that he's exactly where he should be.
Yeah.
100%. He is where he should be.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe the drug theory, but just like I always say this in the comments, that just because we're presenting on it doesn't mean we believe it, you guys.
Yeah.
These are not our beliefs. These are possible theories of cases, okay? Just like what we just talked about with JonBenet. It doesn't necessarily mean I believe that, but I believe in evidence, all evidence, even if it doesn't make sense with a theory. So, but I absolutely check that out, because that is like, man, blew me away seeing the land that he owned and everything else that came with it.
I do think that's what happened, but with the Murdaugh case. But obviously, I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what I think.
Just the more that comes out, the more I believe that is the most plausible theory.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But anyway, so we're going to talk about Buster Murdaugh's statements on the recent, I think it was Fox Nation documentary. It was Fall of Murdaugh House or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't feel like it was as interesting as everybody was making it out to be, but I mean, he said what I thought he would say.
Dude,
if I'm being honest.
What they should have said, what they should have done, because everybody is there for Buster's interview, okay? We already know everything that they included in there. There was not a single speck of new information in all the cut scenes to the case and everything going on. They should have just put his entire interview at the end, the full thing of just him, not cut it up into 50 pieces, dude. It was super frustrating.
It was super annoying because nobody cares about anything else that was said in that except for his interview.
Agreed.
And for them to cut it up into these like 5-second clips throughout 3-hour-long episodes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just fell asleep.
Yeah.
I was like, this is freaking boring.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go look for the clips on YouTube now because this is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing that was kind of cool is, like, seeing some of their family tapes, I guess.
Yeah.
But even that, like, I don't really need to see that.
Yeah.
Being honest. Like, I don't need to know all the details of their family life and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels invasive because Buster's still out here, okay? Like, I'm sure he gave them to them, but, like, I don't know. I feel a little bit bad for the kid, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So, he did this interview that was cut into 5-second clips on this 3-part documentary where he essentially says that he doesn't think his dad did it.
Yeah.
That the jury already knew what they thought from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like that they thought he was guilty from the beginning and it was always going to be that way.
Of course, yeah. Yep. The state did a great job in this case of painting a picture of the defendant like they do in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. We're seeing it a lot more lately. This is like political assassination 101. Character assassination that was used on the political forefront for the last 100 years, now being brought into the courtroom. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think he was character assassinated from the beginning. And if I'm being honest, I don't think anybody deserves that. Like,
just let the evidence speak. Like,
yeah, if you have real evidence that this person killed their child and the mother of their child, then you don't need to character assassinate. There's no need for it.
Yep.
Period.
agreed.
There just isn't. So why? Because if I'm being honest, I don't think Alex is innocent, okay?
Nope.
But I also don't think he was the one pulling the trigger.
Nope.
That's my personal belief. Do I think he should still be in prison for it? Yes, because I do think he had something to do with it. I don't think he's 100% innocent, but I also don't think he's the one who pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
That's just my personal belief. So Buster said he was there for 6 weeks studying it, and I think the tilted table. What? And I think it was a tilted table from the beginning.
Yep.
And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the jurors felt that way prior to when they had deliberated. It was predetermined in their minds prior to when they ever heard any shred of evidence that was given in the room. Then he was asked by the interviewer if his father had characteristics of a psychopath. He said he wasn't prepared to sit here and say that encompasses him as like a whole human, but he thinks when you look at like the manipulation, his characteristics, the lies, and carrying out these things, that it's a fair assessment.
Yeah. I think it was a smart decision. And here's the thing, too. So we talk about the lawyer you know quite a bit. And the lawyer you know talked about this and really dug into like some of the words that Buster used when talking on this interview, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds like pre-planned. Like a lawyer told him exactly what to say. Those are not the type of words you hear just from an average person." So when looking at, and I think he's onto something. I felt that too. I'm not a lawyer, you guys, but like, we're interested in true crime, so that has a lot to do with law and the legal system, so we pick up on these things over time, you know? And I was feeling that way, too. That is not how you would expect someone of his age to talk and be real. This was planned. This was protecting his image. He was sitting super proper, upright, you know, presenting as positive, wearing light clothing, which makes him already look more positive than coming in wearing all black, you know. And he was presenting a perfect, certain way that I think was coached. Now, maybe some people look at that and feel like, oh, what a nice kid. Now I feel bad for him. But it makes me wonder why. Why the act? Why speak at all? Why? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to cover my two topics back to back, and then you can cover your last two topics back to back, because I think I know why. So I agree with you. It definitely felt coached. It definitely didn't feel like him getting on there doing like a real interview where he gets real, which, can we really expect him to do that? No. That's an unrealistic expectation when he is the only surviving out on the street family member from his immediate family. He has nobody. He literally has nobody left. And for the rest of his life, this is going to follow him. His last name was like one of the most known names in South Carolina, especially the low country where they're from. One of the most influential names of that area.
Yep. Everyone knew of him.
So,
and they had power like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, and for his entire reputation to be tarnished because of his father, like, I don't expect anything more of him. And I think I feel bad for the kid. I do feel bad for him. And not because of anything he said. Nothing he said mattered to me. Because I expected all of it. I expect him not to think his dad was guilty. His dad's an extremely manipulative criminal.
Yep.
And is going to pull at his son's heartstrings and be like, how do you think I could do that to your mother and your brother? And like, dude, come on.
Sins of
I'm not
the father
surprised by that.
Are not the sons. That's not how that works. So
no.
I agree with you. I feel a little bad for him too, unless
he's
we get
involved
evidence
in some way
that he is a criminal also.
Yeah.
Then my idea changes, okay? But
Agreed.
I gotta have evidence.
Same.
I'm not going to go out on a limb and believe that he's this awful, horrible monster just because he comes from a line of Murdaughs who have a history of being awful, horrible, law-breaking monsters.
Well, that goes into the Stephen Smith murder that he's been alleged to be a part of, and they asked him about that. He said, I never had anything to do with his murder, and I never had anything to do with him on a physical level of any regard.
Yeah. If
he also said at the time of Smith's death, he was with his mother and brother at another home. I forget. I think he said like a beach house or something like that.
Which is convenient.
Which his alibi is dead.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, Absolutely, absolutely. So, and that's what I was getting at when I said if we find history of a crime. If there's something out there, my take on him is completely different.
Yeah.
Then completely.
I agree with
different. You. Yep.
If he was involved in the Stephen Smith death, and if he had any knowledge of any of this, because say Murdaugh did plot or actually pull the trigger on his wife and his son Paul, why is Buster the surviving one?
Agreed.
Why?
And one thing...
And I do think Murdaugh Alec was involved. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah. I don't know what I believe. I just... The one thing I do believe is that I don't believe that in that short time... Alec could have went and got these two very specific guns were like that were the favorites of the household, the Blackout 300 rifle and the Blackout 12 gauge shotgun, and then pop one and then no to trade out the guns, get in a different position, kneeling position, and then pop the other as they come out. I just don't see that happening from just him. I don't know if he's involved. I don't know if he did something wrong and said, hey, look, we're in a ton of trouble. You can no longer use my land for criminal activity, and this is the outcome. Like, I don't know any of that stuff. I have no idea. I just don't believe he was the sole trigger puller. And I don't know if I'm confident saying he was involved in them ending. I don't know. I hope to find out more details on that.
I mean, all those details are really hard. And, I mean, I feel like, honestly, in the trial, I didn't really get any answers to the whole two-gun thing. That's been the monkey wrench in this case for me the entire time. Now, was it proven he was in the area at the time of the murders? Yes, it was. By the video on Paul's phone that they got. But also... Like, and I saw people online saying, like, Buster sat through all of that court hearing. Like, he was in the trial every single day and saw all the evidence. How could he think his father isn't the guy?
You realize that they don't have the guns. They brought
in 6 guns. I know, they haven't found a murder weapon.
Yeah, they brought out 6 guns... just for show to paint an image, but those are not the actual guns. They had over 100 guns in that house, so I don't know why they brought out 6 or whatever. I have no idea. But, like, Alex would have had to do all that with the swap, with the everything, while driving away, because it was confirmed that he drove away and did go where he said he did. Come back, get rid of the guns somewhere, get rid of whatever evidence, change his clothes, or actually, I think the prosecution was trying to say he washed out some blood spatter he had on his shirt.
I thought he took a shower.
So, something like that, where, like, cleaned it out, whatever, and then called the police and called that in. I just don't see that happening from one man. And him, who is clearly not a very smart criminal.
Maybe he's smarter than we give him credit for.
I don't think so. Not after seeing his faked end himself. No way, dude. No way. Not happening.
The fake end himself was pretty ridiculous.
A good criminal, okay? Think of, like, the mob guys. Think of these heavy hitter financial mobsters that are simultaneously involved in financial crimes and physical crimes, ending people, making people disappear, go missing, and all this stuff. Like, could you ever see them in a case of what happened to him on the side of the road? No way, dude.
No. How I see Alec Murdaugh is I see a drug addict trying to live up to his family's name and reputation while also being a drug addict criminal. And
if he's a drug addict. I don't know if he is. I can't find a single picture, not one.
Buster
of him being
does
high.
say in the interviews that he did go to rehab at one point.
Yeah.
And that he did detox multiple times at home, too.
I get it.
And that his mom and his brother, like, apparently caught his dad a few times, too.
His mom and his brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. So Buster has never actually seen any physical evidence of his dad being an addict.
In other words, yes.
Yep. So look, when there were stories coming out about Brian Koberger being a heroin addict, okay? We can go back and I can find pictures. I found like 5 pictures with his eyes pinpoint, sweaty, white. Like, you can tell he's on something. There's a specific look to opiates.
Alex never looks like that.
I went digging for Alex, and I can't find one. Not one. And at the level of use that he's claiming he was using, that is not possible.
Yeah.
No way. Dude.
The level that he was using for apparently 20 years, might I add, he would be dead.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be alive. It's
Absolutely.
too much Tylenol. He literally would have just destroyed his body.
He wouldn't be overweight.
He would not be overweight.
Like, he wouldn't have any teeth after 20 years of heavy use like that, of eating sugar, because when you're a heavy opiate user, you crave sugar like you can't even believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's all these things that add up over 20 years of use that he doesn't show any signs or symptoms of. None. So I think he knows what's up. I think he's exactly where he should be. I do not think he should get out, because I think he's self-centered enough to be super dangerous, a very, very, very dangerous person. I do think that what happened on the side of the road, he wanted to be ended because he was feeling real loss about his wife and his son. And if you watch the videos of him crying and giving his account, I feel like those are genuine reactions to his wife and his kid in the car. But he couldn't go through with it on the side of the road.
Yeah. So, you know what he said when they asked, like, Buster, what did you think when you found out your dad lied about being at or near the kennels at the time, like right before the murders? Do you remember that part?
Mm-hmm.
Where he said he thought it was super odd, he was confused, he didn't know why he would lie about such a thing. And she asked, like, why did you think he lied? And he said, I don't know. I'd still like to understand, like, why was it needed to lie about that? And so Alex said that was paranoid thinking. The reason he lied about that was paranoid thinking because of his opioid addiction. I've never heard of paranoia from opiates. Like, that's not a common side effect of opiates.
Where I feel like is, I think Alex knew how bad it looked.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he lied.
Yeah.
And he should have been honest, but
Yeah.
you got to remember, this guy comes from a background of always getting what he wants. Always. Always, always, always getting what he wants. Until recently, he never had any pushback from anybody. So I think that he knew it could look bad on him, and he wanted to avoid that. Because, again, I don't think he pulled the triggers. I just don't. I don't think
so either.
Why 2 guns? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't throw off anybody. Using 1 gun and getting rid of it is the same as using 2 guns with 1 person and getting rid. Like, why?
Yeah, I don't know why either. That has never made sense to me. I could never make sense of it.
Well, and also, the angle of the shots show somebody that is like 5'8" or less. And they tried to say in the case that they had another expert come up that says, yeah, but can't you just change the distance and that changes the angle to match? That's not possible. That's not possible. You cannot. The only thing that would change it is where your grip of the gun is. You can't, if you're taller, you can't just back up more and now it's going to be the same degree.
You're talking about the rifle.
The angle of the shots.
Of the rifle.
Both.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't understand exactly how that works, but
yeah.
So they talk about, like, the stain on the Murdaugh name and, like, how Buster's like, yeah, it's obvious and people are going to think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But he says, like, they asked, do you ever worry you're like your dad? And he said, well, I'm not a thief, I'm not a liar, I'm not a manipulator. So in those regards, I'm nothing like him. But he likes to believe he has his more admirable traits of his father. And he talks about what he wants in his life, like how he doesn't have any of his family left, but he wants a happy life. So, moving on, because of this interview, Alex loses his iPad and phone privileges because his lawyer was recording conversations through the iPad, I guess, to communicate with the news media for his own gain. Oh, he was abusing the telephone privileges. Mm-hmm. Well, then his tablet had also come under scrutiny because he was recording selfies in which he was like topless and like just chilling.
Yeah.
So because of this interview and the lawyer, like, you know, recording these telephone conversations of him reading off journals and stuff for this, which I don't think they actually got used. Like, I think there was a couple small excerpts or something, but they didn't like use his whole journal reading.
Yeah.
But in this article from the New York Post, I was just cracking up at these pictures.
Yeah.
They're so ridiculous.
Well, I don't think he expected them to be released.
Why is he taking selfies, though? Is he trying to hook up with people? Like, what's going on here?
No, wasn't he, like, talking or something?
I don't think you can FaceTime in prison.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
But so after he got in trouble for the phone call stuff, he actually got another prisoner to, like, let him use his device?
No, his
or
phone
something?
card.
Oh, yeah, his phone card. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And then he ended up getting his commissary and everything taken away.
Yeah, which I found super interesting, too, because it's a rule of thumb that in prison or jail, if you are a woman or child abuser or murderer, you better watch out, because the rest of the prisoners in there that you're with have wives, have children, and they don't like that, okay? Now, it makes me wonder if there's some kind of underground criminal element that already know what happened and what's going on and don't believe that he did that, and that's why he's in a position where he's able to
ask for another guy's PIN number to make phone calls.
Absolutely. That's a certain level of power in there that I don't think a woman abuser or child abuser killer in his case would get.
Yep. I agree with you.
They tried saying he was like the shot caller. That's why he had that. No, come on. I don't think he's...
No, he's no shot caller.
He's not a criminal, like, mastermind. It's not there.
And he
botched everything.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
Failed at everything criminal.
He literally failed at everything.
Everything criminal.
And which is why he's pleading guilty to all of his financial crimes.
Yeah.
But that's all we got on the Buster Murdaugh situation, and now we're going to switch over to the new possible trial he'll be getting.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to this big claim in the headlines that Murdaugh's lawyers, his defense team, have new evidence. And when I first read that, I was like, what do they mean, new evidence? Like, are they going to try to claim mistrial? Like, what? Are they going to try to... Is this a part of the appeal process? No. They're literally putting the appeal on hold. They're suspending it. And they're coming out with this new evidence they have that the clerk, the, like, county clerk... which is an elected official, might I add, tampered with the jury. That she influenced them by doing all kinds of stuff, honestly. There's a lot of claims here, and I was watching The Lawyer shout out to him. He's literally incredible. I want to do a collab with him one day, because he's so knowledgeable. I feel like, he tries to remain unbiased in a lot of situations, and his coverage on this was really, really good, because he has a lot of experience in the courtroom. He knows how it's supposed to work. And he was saying, this is unheard of. This is unprecedented. And then I went on to watch like Court TV and some other things. And everybody was saying, this is not normal. Like, this doesn't happen. And if it is happening, like, this is a serious problem. The county clerk should not be talking to the jury. She should be saying, what do you want for lunch? making hotel reservations. She's like the operations manager of the court. She is not meant to do anything with the jury. She should not have close, direct contact with them like that and talking with them. And basically what happened is somehow the defense team... Okay, so she wrote a book. The county clerk wrote a book. Let's start with that. She wrote a book about it's something like behind the scenes type book.
Oh no.
Yeah, of the trial of Murdaugh. And apparently everybody said this book is horrible. That it glorifies her. The whole thing is about her and glorifying her in this trial, which makes no sense at all. And it was trash, is what everyone's saying. And everyone's saying it's like a money grab. Like this was totally
glorifies
a money
her, like
yes.
Who are you?
I know. She's just the county clerk. Like what? It makes no sense.
Cash grab.
Which honestly worries me a little bit with the Koberger case, because Chief Fry's wife is the clerk of the court, is she not?
Yeah.
And we're already worried about a biased jury.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so from what I heard from the defense team is they've only ever heard of like jury tampering like this with bailiffs.
Okay.
Because they're the ones that have like really close direct contact with the jurors.
And
nobody
police.
Yep. And jurors are never supposed to talk about the case with each other or literally anybody else. They are never supposed to talk about it, period. Well, apparently the county clerk was coming into the jurors' chambers and saying stuff like, don't let them fool you. Like, watch what Alex does. Watch his body language or whatever. Watch what he does. Don't let them sway you. Like, talking about the defense team. And this comes from multiple jurors.
Oh, no.
Independent accounts, okay? And they wrote a sworn affidavit. So this is not just word of mouth. They literally wrote a sworn affidavit independently of each other. 3 jurors.
Was there any threatening tactics in there?
So basically one thing I guess you could kind of consider threatening is they said that when they were like going to deliberate a verdict, that she came in there and said no smoke breaks until you find a verdict.
Oh, what?
And then also the judge apparently, which they said, we don't think the judge did anything wrong. But, and this kind of seemed like it was getting pinned on the county clerk, but it might not have actually been her that said it. But like if they came to deliberate that day, didn't pack bags, okay? And they're like, well, if you don't find a verdict by the end of the day, you're going to have to stay at a hotel with no packed bags. Like there was no planning, which could be an issue with the court not planning right. But she's in charge of that stuff, I thought. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that part.
The judge's last comment when he was delivering sentencing, though, I felt like wasn't needed.
What did he say?
With making a comment where I'm sure when you're laying down at night that your wife and son are visiting you. He meant that in a negative way. Alex spun it in a positive way and said, yes, every night that I'm laying down, I see my wife and my son. In my opinion, that wasn't needed. Opinion isn't needed in court. Like, give the sentencing.
Yeah, a lot of people like the judges, like in the her sentencing, Lori Daybell.
Yeah, but that was not opinion-based attacking her at like, I don't know.
Maybe it was different, but I don't recall hearing that comment. So maybe it felt different when it was said. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was like came off more as like an attack. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate Alex Murdaugh, which I totally get why he's hated.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody likes him because he's corrupt.
Yeah.
He was in a position of authority. He was in a position of privilege, and he was totally took advantage of it and is a total complete piece of crap criminal. But that doesn't that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a fair trial. And if somebody is in there making the jury feel like they have to hurry and find him guilty, or, you know, trying to influence them, like, the jury doesn't necessarily know what's right in the court. Like, they could be people who have never been in a court proceeding ever in their life, okay, let alone be a juror. And when court officials are telling you this stuff, I'm sure you don't really question it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not the jurors' fault at all.
No.
And
no. What do you want them to, like, la la la? You know what I mean? What? Come on.
Yeah. So from what the lawyer, you know, was saying, and several other people, like even all the people on court TV, they're like, if this is all true, if this is all 100% true, he deserves another trial.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what you think of him. He absolutely deserves another trial.
Yep.
And I totally agree with that.
We said this already once this podcast, but we stand with the evidence. I try to never ever look at the defendant. I try and never ever look at the lawyers that are involved. I try and only look at the crime and the evidence that's there, and all the additional opinions. Like, that's great. We love everybody's opinion and their take on any case or situation or anything that's going on. But in the courtroom, there's no room for that. There's no room for that. Just let the evidence speak and let the lawyers do their job. They know where that line is. They know how far they can push it. They know what they're doing.
Yep.
Most of them have decades of experience. So, county clerk, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're literally there to manage the place, basically. You're not there to do any influencing on the jury whatsoever. Like, it's so ridiculous. So her name's Rebecca Hill. That's her name. I don't think I said her name at the beginning. So it says, these are the main claims. She tampered with the jury by advising them not to believe Murdaugh's testimony and other evidence presented by the defense, pressuring them to reach a quick guilty verdict, and even misrepresenting critical material information to the trial judge in her campaign to remove a juror she believed to be favorable to the defense. Oh. So that last part is about a Facebook post. So there was the lead juror, and this all happened during the trial. I'm sure a lot of you saw it going on where they removed a juror because of a Facebook post, and that the judge did decide, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you can't be on the jury. If it was her ex-husband, it was a woman, I think, and her ex-husband allegedly posted something to Facebook talking about the case. And which made it seem like she was talking to people outside of the courtroom about the case. And so he removed her from the jury and then, like, appointed a new juror as a lead juror. And apparently this new juror was someone that the county clerk had been kind of buddying up with.
Oh my gosh.
And the defense team for Alec Murdaugh believes that she removed a juror, fabricated the story, and removed a juror that was favoring Alec to replace her with one that wasn't, that thought he was guilty. And their evidence of this is they went to the ex-husband, and apparently he provided all of his Facebook history to them, and there is no evidence of these Facebook posts whatsoever, ever existing, ever.
Oh my gosh. It's
damning evidence so far.
Really, really damning evidence. Oh my gosh.
I know, it's really bad. And the defense attorney said they went, like, after they started finding this stuff out, they went door to door knocking on, like, jurors' doors and stuff. And they said all of them but, like, 3 were like, get out of here. Don't ever come back. Like, you know, like, really didn't want to talk to them. Like, you know, and then they had those 3 that all independently wrote their affidavits. One of them wasn't like it wasn't their personal account. It was what they told, like, a paralegal, and then the paralegal wrote it into an affidavit. But the other 2 were from the jurors' own words. And these are all independent of each other. Like, they weren't all in a room together or anything at any point.
Yeah, that's wild. But that juror replacement is
and they
insane.
well, see, here's the thing. None of them contradict each other at all, and all of their statements confirm each other's.
Oh, man.
So
what a bad situation.
It is bad. And I saw on Court TV, they interviewed the co-author of Rebecca Hill's book. And apparently, his wife met her at some point, like, I think throughout the trial or something like that. Okay. And then later, his wife had, like, Rebecca Hill's phone number and called her about something unrelated, and then, like, they started talking about, like, a book or something, and then she was like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about writing a book. And then he's like, this guy who can make it happen, like an author. And so they, like, get together and they write a book, and he's like, we thought it was really interesting, you know, it's never been done by a county clerk before.
Duh.
And Court TV, like, some of the experts on there were ripping that apart. Like, are you this seems like this just doesn't make sense. Like, are you kidding me? It all happened by just random circumstance. Like, she didn't plan this at all. It just fell into her lap.
Right,
that
because
this
if he
guy's
would've been
wife
innocent,
had her phone number, and they just like, oh yeah, we should write a book. That's really interesting. No.
And if he would have been found innocent, then she would have had nothing.
Yeah, she would have had
nothing.
Yeah. So
no book, nothing.
A lot of, you know, the defense and others are alleging that she literally planned this, like, from the beginning of the trial.
This
like,
is
anticipated the trial.
So wild.
And this was like she was trying to get fame and, like, money and stuff. Which is weird. That's a weird motive, in my opinion.
Then go pursue a different career,
right?
Not a county
Why
clerk.
not be an attorney then? Why not be a badass prosecutor or badass, like, defense attorney or
where
something?
you could legally talk about things like this? Yeah, with your defendant, yeah.
It's super weird.
It is. It's strange. It is really strange.
But yeah, he could be getting a whole new trial. They have to get the judge may have to be a witness. So they may have to go through a different judge, and he will be a witness. Like, have to take the witness stand.
That just gave the defense full control, man. She screwed up.
She did. And I did see the lawyer note talking. So people were saying in his comments, like, could this be some kind of thing
set
to
up
get
from the defense?
Set up from the defense, like, they paid off the jurors.
Mole?
They paid off the jurors, or also talking about because he's pleading guilty to all the financial crimes, that he'll get put in a federal prison.
Oh yeah, I know about the whole federal
and then
prison
like
grab.
this will come in after, so
Yep.
then he will be in federal prison where he wants to be. But
Yes.
why would he want to be in federal prison?
So the difference in what you're allowed to have in a federal prison versus a state prison is night and day. In a federal prison, you can literally have your own room, your own TV, all kinds of snacks and amenities, and you're essentially staying in an armored hotel room. Okay, not really that nice, but in comparison to a state penitentiary, that's what it seems like. So the amenities are so different. Here's the truth, okay? With Alec already admitting, which is interesting though, okay, because they have over 100 financial charges against him, where they can use him admitting his guilt in this case, in this court case, to charge him with those 100 and something charges brought against him. If this gets thrown out, are they allowed to use that anymore? They might not be able to use that. So this might be restart 100%, like from the beginning, full stop restart.
Oh, maybe.
I
Actually,
don't know.
maybe.
I'm going to have to dig in a little bit because I don't know. I've never seen a situation like this.
Yeah, I don't. Nobody has. Literally, nobody has seen a situation like this where a county clerk has done something like this.
Why did she have to?
She's an idiot. So
Tamper.
the name of Rebecca Hill's book is Behind the Doors of Justice: The Murdaugh Murders. It was published in July. It's all about her experience of this trial, her family's history with the Murdaughs, and it's literally, from what I saw, just all about her. But so She pressured them to deliberate less than 3 hours on his guilt, which is pretty wild because that is a short time for a jury to deliberate.
Yep, they're supposed to be able to deliberate any
amount of time, pretty much. So also, she secured, like, media appearances for the jurors and went, like, with them, which is unheard of. Really weird. So it says, Miss Hill did these things to secure for herself a book deal and media appearances that would not happen in the event of a mistrial, the motion says. Ms. Hill betrayed her oath of office for money and fame. It also claims she invented a story about the Facebook post. So it's really weird, though, that she started directing these media appearances for herself and the jury.
It is.
That is strange.
I think the whole thing is strange.
And
it's
that
all
to
a
me,
setup
proved her setting it up for her book deal and her appearances more than anything, because that doesn't make sense for the county clerk to set up media appearances for the jury. That has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, I agree.
That to me proves that she was in it for fame and trying to get this book deal off the ground. 100%.
Oh, you mean, and not as a mole for the defense or the prosecution or something like that, that it was just personal gains that ruined this case. Yeah, I know. I think so. Based on everything I'm hearing, absolutely that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I think we should definitely watch the defense team's press conference that they had talking about this on live stream.
Yes.
Because it was good.
We should.
It was really good.
So be there.
Yep, but that's all I got on that. I want to know what you guys think about this. Like, it's pretty insane. And I saw people saying, like, you know, how do we prevent this in the future? This is unheard of. This is unprecedented.
Right.
Like, this doesn't happen. Like, we do
They
have
just
ways.
do their job.
We do have ways of preventing this. I think that this is something. Maybe just in South Carolina.
Right.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Seems like the corruption runs pretty deep there. It's funny, she writes a book about her family's connections with one of the most corrupt families in the state.
Yeah.
And then she does something super corrupt herself.
Right. I know.
Like, ironic.
Get it together. All right, so with this again, I know I've said this once already, but being a shorter episode and everything, I wanted to use this time to be able to talk about another one of our viewers. This is the second viewer topic that we're going to be bringing up. So we have one of our followers and viewers that's honestly, I don't remember how far back they started watching and engaging with us, but like they're awesome. They're on almost every live stream and bringing information forward and everything, and
laughs and good conversation. And it's Ian.
Yeah, it's Ian.
The star of the chat, which he's been dubbed.
Of the chat. So we appreciate everything that comes from him. Just
we should get a little gold star and put Ian's name on it.
We should. That would be hilarious to use as an emote in the chat. That would be funny.
Every time he comments, people just spam star with Ian on it, star of the chat.
That'd be so funny. Super funny. But to dig into what we're talking about here, he brought forward a very, 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 very interesting topic. And with these shorter episodes, this isn't going to do it justice, but I wanted a little bit of an intro because I do feel like this is going to be pretty extensive for us to look into and dive into. So I wanted to pull out a couple things here that I was like blown away on, okay? So Ian put together a whole bunch of different links of media coverage of the Idaho4 before Kohberger was the guy. You know what I mean? So to get an understanding, and I don't know if it comes out today or tomorrow, but we have a Character Assassination 101 video where it's talking about and laying out like the character assassination in this episode. And again, I say this every time and I'm going to keep saying it, you guys. We do not need Kohberger to be innocent. That is not our place here. We don't need him to be guilty. In fact, I want him to be guilty because then that means there's not other killers out there running around in public. So I hope he is guilty. But we want to make sure that he's being convicted guilty with a fair trial. That's not
or else you
asking
have
for
the
too
Murdaugh
much.
situation we were just talking about.
Right. So we've seen a lot of hearsay in the Brian Kohberger case between cannibalism and all this other stuff from the media. You know what I mean? And we've talked about
incel to cannibalistic.
it's right.
To being bullied as a fat kid with girls literally just throwing things
at him every day, just all day throwing things at him, to being compared to the Florida hot yoga studio killer, like to being
Bundy.
Ted Bundy. But
let's be honest. Ted Bundy has like way more charm and charisma than Kohberger has in his pinky finger.
I know, for real. But so he put together probably like 20 links here, giving us a whole bunch of stories. So I just wanted to read through some of these. This is from November 15th to November 29th, and then I have a couple of them we'll actually get into. But the topics on each is. This one talks about the victims and campus impact, early stages of the investigation and initial community reaction, extensive timeline, more than one suspect, speculation on murder weapon, slain while they slept, and talks about the defensive wounds, Gonsalves family, victim timeline, and no forced entry.
We should make this a multi-part series.
Yeah, I think we can do that. But so here, let me get through this. So Kaylee's 6 calls to her boyfriend between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Timeline for the 911 call, food truck, victim sleeping attacks, the dead animals, which is the dog, unrelated, they claim in this.
Buddy.
Yep. Timeline between 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 911 call. This covers the difference in stab wounds, whether the victims were awake and when they were awake, when they were attacked. Boyfriend calls, kind of goes into everything. Essentially, and then here's the 2 important ones. But with all of that, okay, that all seems like really basic media coverage. What you would expect from our media and news sources to come out with, right? They're speculating how this could have been done. They're speculating on what type of person could have done this. They're speculating on what it was like inside the house during the crime, what it was like before the crime for these victims, what they would expect to see in the suspect, and all these things that you would expect to see from media, right? Everything looks completely normal here. Now, once Kohberger becomes the guy, though, all these stories start flipping. Nothing is about how he could have done it, why he could have done it. It's all the media telling everyone this is why he did it. This is, you know what I mean? And they're just painting an image of who he is, saying, you know, he is this incel person that's been walking down or in every school, having every woman that's ever looked at him throw things at him. He's a cannibal. He's a this. He's a that. And I think why Ian brought this up is I think a lot of people are concerned with a fair trial, right? So why was there this switch? Why did we have to be told why Kohberger's the guy, and why couldn't the evidence that was being talked about from 11:14 to or 11:16 to 11:29 paint its own image of Kohberger? That's a super interesting question, in my opinion. Why? Why couldn't we let all of this that we're reading here paint its own image?
Well, I do think it's interesting to know that Bill Thompson, the county prosecutor, was at the crime scene very early on, like days within this happening.
Yep.
And we know the prosecution likes to paint an image.
They do, but not for every case. We don't see it for every case. We see it for some cases where they're telling the general public who this person is, why they are this, and how they did this. And I think this is just one of the most intense situations I've seen of this happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And so much of it is baseless with the character assassination.
And it's so strange, too, to me, because, yes, all these articles that we're seeing from the news and media, I feel those things, too, towards the person that did it. The only thing I'm waiting for to be able to, release those feelings is evidence proving this person is the one who did it. And I feel like that's what we're missing. So a lot of times we'll see where this character assassination and these kind of experts giving these opinions and things like that on a suspect where they don't have a good case, which is insane to me. You would think that you would see these things when we do have a good case.
There's a gnat in here. It's trying to fly in my face.
But you would think we would see these things when they have a strong case.
Yeah.
We don't hear people talking about Rex Heuermann being a cannibal. Wild. Why?
You had people speculating on his motives and stuff, though.
Not in the same way. No
No,
way.
not in the same
No
way.
way. Not even
It's
comparable.
it is mostly factual and evidence-based because the facts are so insane
Or asking
that
questions.
they speak for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Or asking questions, right?
Yeah.
And that was almost a topic that I covered today. Was one of the Gilgo topics. But anyways, so as I'm going through this, he attached 2 links here, okay? And one of them was from 11/27, okay? So it's by The Sun, and it's titled, Idaho University Student's Killer is Following in Ted Bundy's Footsteps and is behind at least 2 other murders, says PI, right? Super interesting, stood out to me right away. So we have the University of Idaho student murderers may be responsible for at least 2 other deaths following in serial killer Ted Bundy's footsteps. Funny how we've heard people compare Brian Kohberger to Ted Bundy. Okay?
Yeah, that's what they're
And-
doing here.
Yeah, no, they're not comparing Brian to that. They're just saying that this killer was comparable to Ted Bundy.
Oh,
so
okay,
it's
okay.
interesting that this idea was already there before Brian, and then news media decided to attach it to Brian. You know what I mean? So it's been 2 weeks since 4 college kids were brutally stabbed to death in Moscow, Idaho home, and police have yet to find the killer. Then they have a picture of Ted Bundy here, and then they have a picture of private investigator Bill Warner. Bill Warner also believes that the Idaho killer is responsible for 2 other unsolved murders. So Bill Warner is a private detective from Sarasota, Florida, called the murderer a copycat serial killer after tracing down the same killing spree pattern as the infamous Ted Bundy murders. The gruesome deaths of the 4 roommates have captured the public's attention since police made the chilling discovery on November 13th. Warner has been looking into the case and extensively told the U.S. Sun about his theory into who the killer may be and where they may strike again. As far as I can ascertain, there is no link to any boyfriend of the 3 college students, says Warner. Cops have ruled out all male acquaintances. He added, appears to be a stalker targeted one of the girls, most likely Kaylee. The stalker serial killer knew where Kaylee lived and found easy access through a rear unlocked slider to the house and then went about killing anyone he found during the rampage. All of this appears to be done by a power control serial killer, much like serial killer Ted Bundy during his rampage in the 1970s. A current-day copycat serial killer, warned Warren. Now, these 2 attacks, okay? Warner mentioned 2 other unsolved murders that were committed in recent years, one in Oregon and one in Washington, right by Idaho. So super interesting. Both were knife attacks, like the Idaho murders. On August 13th, 2021, a couple from Salem, Oregon, Travis and Jomelyn Juetten, sorry if I hacked that, were stabbed in the middle of the night with a long knife. Crazy. It's identical. Okay?
It was a couple.
Friends said Travis, 26, died while trying to stop the frenzied killer from attacking his 24-year-old wife, who ended up surviving from 19 stab wounds.
Oh my gosh.
She didn't survive, based on another article I found. But, so this was August 13th, 2021, okay? When did it happened in November of 2022?
Yeah.
Well, there's one more before that. Sandra Ladd, 71, was discovered with multiple stab wounds in her torso on June 12th, 2020. So if this killer could be linked to this, it could be an escalation, and Sandra could be possibly one of the first times. When serial killers first start, a lot of times we see them focusing on younger, weaker, more controllable people, like younger people, or if they're a man, a small-statured woman, or in this case, maybe an elderly woman, 71.
I want to know about her family members. Does she have a grandson? Does she have a child that...
I don't know. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
good,
We need to look into who she is,
right.
and if that could have been this person's first kill. Was
So
their mother
many
or
go
grandmother
after-
or something like that?
So many go after their mom or grandma because they have an overbearing, controlling parent. So Sandra Ladd was found in her Washougal home in Washington. The two knife attacks happened within 70 miles of each other. However, police have said that a 2021 Oregon murder and a 99 Washington murder may also share similarities, but does not appear to be any evidence related to the case. So I pulled up the one of the couple. All right, so this article on the couple that I'm talking about, it's titled "Gripped with Fear, Haunting Link Between University of Idaho Murders and Horror Stabbing of Couple Could Crack Mystery Cases." So the cops believe they found a haunting link between the University of Idaho murders and the horror stabbing of a couple in Oregon. Investigators said the killing shared similar characteristics to an earlier deadly knife attack on a sleeping couple. And you know what time this happened at? 3 a.m.
Nuh-uh.
3 a.m. And if you guys didn't know, serial killers' hunting times tend to be at the same time.
Every time.
Every time.
BTK was the same time.
Exactly.
Every time.
They go out at the same time, like a switch. They change and go and do their thing. So when I was reading this, I was blown away, you guys, because a lot of these articles that Ian, again, thank you for sharing these, we weren't covering true crime at the time. The podcast wasn't even around. We weren't even doing partial true crime when these were coming out. So we're just reading and figuring out these to date, right now, almost a year later. But how interesting is this?
Yeah, we got to dig deeper into the articles. I know we're going to be able to make it a multi-part series, honestly, because there's also the question of the timeline of change, which I know he said is in these articles too.
Yes.
But that is interesting that they were finding links to other stabbings.
It's super interesting, and this could go both ways too. So if you're somebody that believes Kohberger's guilty, because we have viewers that believe he's guilty, and that's great. We want everyone to be able to talk and open up and share opinions here. This could also be him, technically.
Was he in the area at that time?
I need to triple check that, but there's no reason why it couldn't be and why there couldn't be other unsolved cases. These are unsolved.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could insert anybody into these situations. Now, if the crime matches, the time matches in the same general area and it matches, it's very, very, very likely the same person.
Yep.
And this could be proof of serial. This is 3 separate occurrences, okay? 3 separate occurrences, all very similar. Large edged weapon. Same times. Crazy.
Weird.
It is very weird. It is very, very weird.
All within, an hour of each other?
Yes. All within 100 miles of each other. Yep. So a $50,000 reward was put up by their family for information leading to the killer's murderer. So, yeah.
The killer's murderer.
Or the murderer. So, interesting. Interesting, you guys. I don't know. I'm blown away. I am absolutely blown away here.
Yeah, because I've never seen this being linked to other cases like this. There's a similar MO, and they're young people. This couple are young people. Yep. The older lady, it does make me question, could this be a relative? You know what I mean? It makes me want to look into that more.
Could it have been a relative? Could it have been a first? Could it have been something connected? Yeah. Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And I also find it super interesting just glossing over some of these topics and the difference of the media coverage, because it's almost like once a whole bunch of people got bought into this, we became... What's that term called where you have a group of people that go into psychosis? What is that? I'm drawing a blank.
Herd mentality?
Yeah, no, not herd mentality. There's an official term for it, and I'll probably have it floating on the screen once I figure it out. I just can't think of it right now. But where it's like a group psychosis, where you have a whole bunch of people that are interested in one thing or a whole bunch of people that are grouped together, and that's what can create riots. It's this human characteristic that when there's a whole bunch of people, if you take one of those people and separate them, more than likely they won't believe that thing. But when you put them in a group of people, for whatever reason, they all believe that thing because we're herd animals. Humans are. We like to be around people. We like to be a part of people, and we like to be, in a group. So, just looking at the news and media on this coverage makes me feel almost like we're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so strange when I feel like there's a lot of other good options and opportunities and connections out there that we could be looking at.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I do feel like the police worked backwards on Kohberger, and I would like to look into those other connections because this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And, I hope the best for Travis and Jameline. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Jamil.
I think it's Jamie Lynn.
Duh.
Jameline.
That's so bad. I know. So
people
Travis
are gonna get so mad at us.
And Jamie Lynn. Dude, all of our viewers know by now. If it's a name of a person or a place or a thing, I'm gonna forget it. I can't help it. We are completely
or mispronounce
unscripted.
It. We're not great at pronouncing things, okay? We're in the moment, unscripted. We're not trying to pronounce names beforehand.
Yep,
We're just out here giving it to you raw.
Yep.
And just because we laughed at us messing up a name does not mean we're making light of the situation or the victims. We want justice for them.
Yep,
we care about it.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Laughing
but anyways,
doesn't mean you're making fun of anything.
Yep. I hope that...
I'm making fun of his stupid name pronunciation.
Yeah. I hope that the families are doing okay with Travis and Jamie Lynn Jutton. So, they were killed in their sleep in August a couple years ago, and there could be a very likely connection here. So, awful, and... we hope that killer gets caught. So
yeah, justice for Travis and Jamie Lynn.
But let us know what you think. I know this was a quick one, but we'll be back as normal later this week. So, all right. So third and final story tonight is the Rex Heuermann Gilgo Beach 4 update in the investigation. Have you heard anything else? Okay, so one of the things that if you guys have been following those videos and cases that we've talked about is there's no way that he's only connected to these 3 potentially 4. Right now he's only charged with 3, but they're very openly saying that he has connection or is to blame for 4 of them. However, when looking at the cooldown period on Rex Heuermann, it doesn't make sense that he doesn't have more. A serial killer that is active and killing does not go out there and do like a group of them and then just stop. Normally the only way they stop is like age or an injury or something like that,
Something
right?
in their life changes to where they can't easily go do it anymore.
Yep. So, so they've been pretty open about the fact that he's connected to 4 of them, but that doesn't make a lot of sense with his cooldown period and how serial killers have a cooldown period where like their whole life, it's just they're either going up or going down, but they're always going forward.
Until
you know what I
something
mean?
stops them.
Until something stops them. So during the cooldown phase at the peak will be a murder, and then they'll cool down from that murder using the memory of that, the situation of that
Until
to
they get the
get
itch.
through. Yep. At the bottom, that's no longer enough anymore, and they need someone new to think about, right? So with Rex Heuermann's and looking at these victims, we know there has to be more. It just doesn't make a lot of sense that there's not, okay? Well, a woman has come out in the South Carolina area, okay? So missing South Carolina woman, Julia Bean. Her daughter came out. Cameron Bean. Okay, Cameron Bean.
And it's her sister too, right?
Yeah.
Her sister and the daughter. I think I
Yeah.
saw an interview with them actually.
Yep. So the daughter came out and said that she has an eyewitness account where she believes that she saw Rex Heuermann's cars, one of them that he owns today and happened to see in the FBI video, and remembers right around her mom going missing, like literally the day before she went missing, saw her with him and could identify him and could identify the car. What's interesting is Rex Heuermann has a connection or owns...
He owns a piece of property in Chester, I thought, South
Yes,
Carolina.
in Chester, South Carolina, only 80 miles from this person.
And it's just a piece of land that he owns.
And it is just a piece of land.
And
yes.
his brother lives down there too.
I know, but that is a huge coincidence, okay?
Yep.
And look, we say all the time there's not a lot of coincidences in murder. There's definitely none with a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, none, okay? So I think that she's totally onto something here.
Yeah.
And she just happened to see Rex Heuermann on the news, happened to see the cars, and was like, oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember that vehicle. I remember seeing my mom getting in that car. Her mom ended up leaving that day without a cell phone and just never came back.
So
But
sad.
there's some big questions here too with this, because
Agreed.
so the mom wasn't very reliable, was in and out of their lives, part of the street game like most of these women, so it matches Rex Heuermann's MO, and they didn't report her missing until 3 months later.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, August, September. Yeah, 3 months later. So she went 3 months with being gone, and they didn't say anything because it wasn't uncommon behavior for that to happen.
And then at the 3-month mark, they're like, "Whoa, she's been gone like way longer than usual."
Yeah, I can't get a hold of her. She hasn't called to update. She hasn't called to check. Nothing like that. So the FBI is absolutely looking into this, and they're going to start investigating that. I mean, look, if I was the FBI, I'd be grabbing my cadaver dogs and going to that property.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious why they haven't searched that property up and down yet. If they just
Maybe
can't get
they
the
have.
warrants yet.
Maybe they have. I don't know. Or maybe that property isn't a dumping ground. I mean, is Rex Heuermann smart enough to own a piece of property but not use it as a dumping ground?
Yeah.
Right? Because technically the bodies at Gilgo would have already been found and found out. And he probably is way more careful with his...
Or maybe, yeah, I mean, it's his actual property, so yeah, that would be kind of dumb to, like, use it as a dumping ground when your
Somehow-
name is attached to it.
I agree 100%. And I feel like this is another one of those situations where in our news topic updates we were talking about BTK and some of those coincidences with, you know, a blonde victim showing like in his journal of planning of victims, right? And it matches perfectly the color of the victim who went missing's hair and dress and all these things. Like, dude, too much of a coincidence. I look at this and I'm feeling very similar in this situation too, where the daughter can remember and identify the car and the color of the car, not the exact make, but like that it was a sedan, silver, things like that. And Rex Heuermann. And Rex Heuermann's 6'4", like he's a big dude, he's going to stand out.
He's a distinct looking person.
He is, absolutely. I even feel like his facial features are too. So, yeah, absolutely. And then she reaches out, come to find out, he has property that's within an hour and a half drive of this missing person. I think that we're going to see bodies start stacking up under him.
I agree, because I just don't feel like it's even possible for it to have only been those on Gilgo.
I agree, based on cooldown times.
Yeah.
And one thing to remember, you guys, I know we've said this before, is the FBI said they picked him up early. Because they were seeing him start escalating. So they were probably watching him as he was going through a cooldown phase and started seeing him escalating, reaching out to new women, looking for a new victim, harassing, all these things. And they felt like, hey, there's a very real possibility someone could get hurt here. We need to pick him up now.
Yeah.
So the fact that that's even going on at all, that the FBI had to step in early at all, proves that he's still active.
Yep. I definitely think so. There's nothing in his life that seems like it would have stopped him yet. He's not too old. You know, his family seemed like they had no idea. Like, I agree. It just doesn't seem like he would have any reason to stop. And based off his internet activity leading up to his arrest,
looking for underage children, getting hurt in specific ways.
Still
like,
harassing
awful,
sex workers
awful.
online and family members of victims and everything. Like, he was still doing everything.
The dolls, yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, if you haven't seen that video, the dolls at the victims, like, you know, little memorials and stuff is super weird.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet it was him doing it.
Yeah. No, me too. Especially when looking at some of the dolls they pulled out of his house. There's obviously some kind of weird connection. And maybe he looks at these women like...
Dolls,
yeah.
Maybe.
I just don't...
Well, that was a BTK thing, too.
It was. Yes, it was. Yep. And he would mimic his victims and dress as a doll himself. Yes.
But we have that really creepy picture of him.
Yep.
Like, it's
and I'll post
super
it.
creepy,
I'll post
dude.
it. But and then BTK comes out and says that Rex Heuermann is a copycat of him. I wonder if they've ever talked.
Wouldn't that be crazy if they started writing each other letters or something?
I've always wondered.
Should they be allowed to do that?
In the I don't know. In this, as long as none of them can get out, I guess. What does it matter?
Serial killers supporting serial killers. They form a group.
Right. In the 70s and 80s, there's a lot of situations where serial killers came across other serial killers. How do they identify each other? Like, what stands out? Is it just that a sociopath like them has an antenna in their head that they're able to pick up the same kind of body language and micro expressions that they're using, so they know? They're like, this person, like, I got them. I got a beat on them.
I have a feeling that serial killers probably can get a beat on other serial killers.
Yeah.
Because, like, as addicts do it too. Like, they can get a beat on another addict, or somebody who's worked in sales. Like, can't you get a beat on somebody who's also worked in sales, and you can see those tactics and speaking and stuff?
Depending on the type of conversation, but yeah.
So I feel like when you have really good, extensive knowledge on something, and that makes you a certain type of person, you can more easily pick up on those things. Now, you might need to confirm it in certain ways, but
Yeah.
I think you could get a feeling.
No,
you know?
absolutely.
Like, yeah, I think that other
Absolutely.
person is that, and then, I don't know. I've never heard of serial killers linking up or anything, though, so...
Oh, I'm sorry. It was actually 6 months later, not 3 months. So Julia Ann Bean was last seen in Sumter County, South Carolina on May 31st, 2017. And her daughter reported her missing November 18th of 2017, that year. The Sumter County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's a really long time.
it is a really long time.
The interview I saw of the sister, so that that girl's aunt, it was on News Nation. It was Ashley Banfield who interviewed her. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the interview, but the sister, like, she's obviously a grieving family member, and I feel bad, and I have empathy for her, but she did say some odd things in that interview.
Yeah.
It was a little odd. Like, and she even talked about her still being alive out there. I was like, how do you think that Rex Heuermann killed her but thinks she's still alive?
Right.
There were some odd things where I feel like she's like, I don't know if it's because she's grieving. It just didn't seem totally logical.
Yeah.
So it made me have question marks around them claiming that she could be a Rex Heuermann victim. But it wasn't an interview with the daughter, you know. I don't know.
I think that when somebody just goes missing, that leaves a lot of question marks. And that's why it's so important that victims' families get this kind of closure, because otherwise you're left with the unknown. And when you're left with the unknown and hope simultaneously, it's really hard for somebody to close the door on hope and say, okay, that's it. I'm taking the stance that they are gone. Okay, that is a very hard thing to do. And honestly, there's no logical reason to do that. You're stuck forever with that door open between hope and admitting they're gone, you know? And I feel like that it just sucks. That's a horrible situation to be in.
It is a terrible situation to be with, especially for the child in this situation. Well, she's not a child anymore, I don't think, but for her daughter to be stuck like this, like, without knowing what happened to her mom. And who knows? Hopefully she isn't a victim, you know, but...
Hopefully she isn't, but...
I'm
yeah.
glad at least it opened a door to investigate. And I think there's a lot of potential cases out there where Rex could have been involved.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. He's clearly been at this for quite a long time.
This is going to be a BTK situation where you have years later cold cases being brought up. Like, could this have been
absolutely.
Rex Heuermann?
Absolutely.
It's going to be just like BTK, like what we're dealing with now.
I agree with you. And here's one thing to note, too, is, look, if he was spread over multiple states, like we know he had land that he owned or houses, things like that in other states.
A condo in Las Vegas, land in South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. He was not afraid to get dirty and put bodies in places that were so hard to get to. So one of the details that was interesting for the Gilgo Beach bodies was that the reason why they went so long without being found is these bushes had huge, giant thorns that tore you up, and they were taken so far into those bushes and thorns and mud like up to your knees that nobody could get to that. Just nobody could get to it. Well, Heuermann did. Heuermann did. So he was dedicated in putting these bodies somewhere where they weren't going to be found. Now imagine South Carolina, and I'll put up some pictures here. Like, that is so hilly. There's so many areas that are really hard to get to. Who knows where the dumping grounds could be? You know, they have caves in South Carolina that, like, people know about, don't know about, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They could be anywhere.
They could be.
Anywhere. He could have changed to burying them.
But Gilgo Beach was very close to his home. I do think they should be looking in the vicinity. Like, not his actual property, maybe. I think they should still look on his property. But in that area? Is there any area that looks like it would be a good dumping ground because it's really hard to get to in that area?
I know. I agree. And I'm not sure. It's interesting, though, that it's in the area of his brothers. That would be a really great cover for a serial killer that has kids and a wife to be like, hey, my brother really needs me. I'm going to go stay at my brother's for the weekend. And then you go down there and get your itch out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or the Las Vegas place, or
Yep.
what was the other one? There was one other one. I think they had 4 areas.
They did?
I think so. Maybe it was Florida.
Oh,
I'm
I
not sure.
only know about the condo in Las Vegas and the land in South Carolina.
Okay.
I don't know about any others, but I could be missing it for sure.
Interesting.
Because I did hear something about Atlantic City at one point, and I don't know if they owned anything there, but I did hear about them possibly connecting some murders of sex workers to him there.
Yeah, they ruled him out there.
Yeah, they did.
But yeah, this is super interesting, and I just hope that they're able to continue to tie people to him. And remember, we got the DNA now, so if there are any cases out there that have some kind of DNA link, we should be able to tie him
and there's been
cases.
hairs of him and his wife on the bodies, so they should be looking for her DNA too on potential victims.
I agree with you. It's so strange.
It is strange, but they do need to look for her DNA.
Every one of those victims, or the 3 that he's being charged with, all had her hair on it.
I just hope they at least get the Gilgo murders all tied to him, because I think he did all of them, or he knows who did the others.
I think he knows who did the others, and that's why I go back to those search results, okay?
Yep.
Because he said a very specific race, age, gender, and what's being done to them when he was searching for these videos online. Now, that makes me feel like you're looking for something specific. You know something is out there, right? You know somebody that has this video that's out there, and you're trying to find it, okay?
Yep.
So if your thing was 20-year-old prostitutes, then why are you looking for these other things here for another killer that might have a different MO, you know? And that's why it makes me feel like he must know somebody.
Yeah, because when I know a YouTube videos out there that I've watched before, I will put in those very specific descriptive words and language that I know will bring up that specific video.
Absolutely.
So that makes me feel like it's very plausible that he knew that those videos were already out there of these victims.
Yeah. I agree with you. But I'm most curious what you guys think. I think Gilgo, we are just scratching the surface here. I don't know if I feel like he did all of them, but like you said, I mean, I feel like he knows who did them all.
Yeah, it's really scary to think about a serial killer ring. If you made it to the end of this video, okay, you're our favorite. And we want to know what you think about the recent apparent surge in serial killers, or at least them getting discovered.
Yeah.
Because it's really odd. And we have a teaser. We are going to have our first interview coming up within the next month or 2, maybe.
Yep.
We'll have the specifics more nailed down soon, of someone who possibly, most likely, escaped a serial killer in the 1970s.
Yep.
In California.
Yep.
And it is crazy.
Yes.
It is wild. We'll go into who that is and all of that at a later date. But it is a first-hand account of this person as a young girl running from a serial killer.
Yep.
It is wild.
And she matched that killer's MO at the time, and the car matched that killer's car at the time. And yeah, it's super interesting. And somebody else reached out and said that we need to reach out to Turtle Boy for the Karen Reed case. That Turtle Boy talks to everybody, so we might try reaching out to Turtle Boy too to get him on and to just fill in some of those gaps and things like that for that case, the Karen Reed case.
Yeah, because Karen Reed case is pretty wild. I've been watching stuff on that recently too.
Yep, absolutely. But we appreciate you hanging in there, and if you're on the audio version, leave us a comment, thumbs up, stars review, whatever it is on whatever you're watching, because we're on everything. If you want to engage in comments and some of the follow-up conversations that we have with some of these topics, meet us on YouTube. That's really our biggest following right now. Now, we know some of you prefer the audio, and that's great. We want to offer it in any media that we can that you prefer.
And if you prefer the audio and still want to reach out, have suggestions, tips, and you don't want to go on YouTube or anything else, our inbox, our email is always open to you, and that is ContactThoughtRiot@gmail.com.
Yes. And people have been begging us to have some kind of membership or tip box where they can support us and things like that, so we can get to a place where we can do this more permanent and full-time. And we are working on that. Because that's our goal too. Because we both have full-time jobs apart from this.
Obligations, yes.
Yep, and we would love to do this full-time, and that's my hope, because I love doing this. Why wouldn't I want to create more content and talk with you guys more often, So we will get on that. We will absolutely get on that, and the best way that you can help us get there is hitting like, subscribe, the notifications, leaving comments, the engagement. Engagement on any platform is everything, you
Leaving
guys.
a review, yep.
It is everything.
It is.
So we appreciate you, and we want your opinions. We want your suggestions. If you have an idea for us that you think would make the podcast better, we want to hear that too. We want anything, stories, firsthand accounts. We want it all. So
yeah, if you have an interesting story related to true crime, reach out, because we'd love to do an interview too with that.
we absolutely would.
I'm so excited for the one we have coming up. It's going to be really great.
It will be good. It will be good. But we appreciate you, and I think that's it. Make sure you come join us on the live stream Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Time or Chicago Time, and come chat with us and hang out.
Yep.
This is Thought Riot Podcast. My name's Brendan.
And I'm Malia.
And we are out.
Awkward bye.
Bye.